All right, everyone. Good afternoon. It is just about 1 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining class today. Thank you for recognizing September as Realtor Safety Month. And today we've got our first Realtor Safety course. We have Tracy Hawkins with us from Safety and Security Source. Tracy was a former realtor. She is frequently featured in Realtor Magazine, on NAR's websites, all that good stuff. Really excited for this class. Before we dive in, I just want to remind people that this is for CE. It's 3 hours. If you want to get that certificate, you will need your webcam on, and it will need to stay on the entire time. Additionally, please make sure your microphone's muted, unless, of course, you're asking questions, interacting with the instructor, that sort of thing. Otherwise, thank you for joining us, Tracy, and I will go ahead and take down my screen and turn it on over to you.
Okay. Fabulous. Let me check to see when the screen share is. There we are. Open. There we are. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tracy Hawkins, and let me get to the very beginning. And I, as Megan said, I am a former real estate agent. As a matter of fact, I have a twin sister. She and I got our real estate licenses about 35 years ago. She is still a practicing agent, and I decided that real estate sales was not necessarily for me. I wanted to do something that served the community and that no one else was doing. So I opened a safety and security business. And then I started speaking around town. I am here in Kansas City, Missouri. And I started speaking around town. Next thing I know, I was speaking on a national level. And here I am. I've had the opportunity to speak. I haven't even counted how many states, but I have been in a lot of places. And I've recently gotten back out on the road. And I went to Montana last week. That was my first trip of the year. And last year I took one whole trip, and that was to South Dakota. So until then, I've been virtual, and I am okay with that. So let us get started today. Why am I here? The National Association of Realtors has mandated that all associations and boards must have some kind of safety education. There's no criteria, but the point is they must have it. And what I like is when an education director does not necessarily know that, but they simply want to have safety training anyway on a proactive basis. So kudos to your association there. What I did is there are not a lot of people who do what I do. So what I did is I started a group on Facebook called the Safety and Security Source for Real Estate. That's where I talk about real estate safety and security stories in the news. I share my articles that I write. I write again for the National Association of Realtors, Realtor Magazine. I've been a contributing writer there for the close. I'm a go-to safety expert for Inman, and I've had the opportunity to write and be interviewed for Risk Media. So that's the place where you can go to find out what's going on, what's new, what's news, as well as safety tips online. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had an opportunity to reach out to an education director about my services. So what you need to understand is I'm a solopreneur. It's just me. And the only way I work is if an association, board, or real estate company sees value in what I do, and then they hire me. That's how I'm able to make a living. So this was about 5 or 6 years ago. I reached out to an education director and I said, I'd love to come in and talk to your agents about safety training. She said, Tracy, that would be great, but it's not good business. And it's like, what are you talking about? She said, I can't invest in you coming because agents won't show up. She said, the only time agents show up for training is when you're teaching them how to make more money. I've had the opportunity to talk to literally thousands of real estate agents, and I see the nods like, well, that's about right. You know, we're commission based. So I had to put on my thinking cap, and it's like, what can I do? What can I say to add value to the relationship with the real estate agent to help them make more money? So I created a designation, the Consumer Safety and Security Specialist designation. And right now, almost 800 real estate agents have completed it. I've taught it this month. I have over 20 engagements this month, and I've had an opportunity to teach that. What it consists of would be 2 CE classes. One's the safe practices, agent safe practices. That's the basic practices that agents need to know. The second part of it is a technology boot camp. We talk about cyber safety, cyber security. We talk about prevention of scams and frauds. We talk about technology. So if they complete those 2 classes, they earn the designation. And the bigger key and the way I got them to show up is I am telling them, I'm going to show you not only how to work safely and make it home safely each day, I'm going to show you how to add value to the relationship with the consumer so that they will like you more. Bottom line, they would want to work with you. That's going to increase your profits. So that is the impetus for me starting that designation, and that actually gets agents' attention. So whatever it takes. We talked about safety being a core standard, and for a while there, I had education directors saying it's not a core standard anymore. We can't find it. I had the opportunity to hear from Bob Goldberg. I reached directly out to him, and he's, by the way, great responding. I said, "Is it still a core standard? I keep hearing that it's not." He assured me that it is. So kudos for the associations and boards who value safety, proactive safety before a crime has occurred. So let us talk about your role as leaders in this industry, as brokers, managers, and owners. The safety culture starts at the top. So if safe practices are important to you, they're going to be important to your agents. What I can say is, having been an agent, and of course having a sister who is an agent over 3 decades, and talking to thousands of agents, not just in real life or virtually, but when I interview them for my articles, but when I get an opportunity to see them on social media, I'm right there. I know what they're thinking. I know what they're talking about. Sometimes agents don't pay attention to safety unless what? Unless there's a crime in the news. So that's when everyone's alert, they're engaged and aware. My focus is to teach them to be proactive. Let's not wait until there are headlines before we start talking about safety. Let's not wait until something has happened to an agent before we care and pay attention. So I have to be honest with you, that's a challenge. I can't get attention from leadership until something's going wrong, and that has got to change. Again, this has been a super busy month. From speaking this morning, I was speaking virtually in Raleigh, and I'll be in Texas this week. I'll be all over the country, but I don't want it to be just one month. So what I'm saying to leadership is, keep in mind, October is National Cybersecurity Awareness and Prevention Month. So for those who couldn't schedule me for September, I'm saying it's not over. Safety doesn't only happen in September. Let's talk in October. Let's talk year round. So if you all think that safety is important and it's shown in everything that you do, your agents will get the message and it will become important to them. So you get to establish the culture of safety in your organization, and they follow your lead. How many of you all are familiar with the Beverly Carter story? I can't see a whole lot of faces. Anyone comfortable enough to jump in, unmute your microphone, and briefly summarize it for us? And before we go further, let me tell you all that this is going to be interactive. That's part of the way the course is set up. I will ask questions, and since there aren't too many of us, unmuting your microphone works perfectly. But if you prefer to answer in the chat, you can do so, and I'll ask Megan just to let me know if she sees any questions or answers in the chat. And typically I have a lot of information. I'm not telling you how many slides I have. It would probably scare you to death, but I have a lot of information to share. And my goal is to have the dialogue as we go along. If you have questions, ask as we go along. If you wait until the end, I'm more than likely going to be talking right up to the end. I don't want you to miss out. Also, keep in mind that we're going to take a 10-minute break near the top of each hour. So you'll have time to step away and take a break. But right now, let's go back to the question. Anyone here comfortable enough to summarize Beverly Carter's story for us?
I'm not familiar with it, so I'm sorry. I can't help you out.
Well, thank you for at least speaking up. I know the microphones are working. Thank you for speaking up. Let me summarize it for you. And then keep in mind, there will be other questions, everyone. So Beverly Carter was a real estate agent in Little Rock, Arkansas. This happened, I want to say 2013, 2014. Beverly got a phone call from a client who said, I want to see a property. I'm a cash buyer. Those of us who are agents, you know exactly what that meant. She was excited. She set that appointment. After she hung up with him, she had second thoughts. She was thinking, what have I done? I'm not comfortable. The reason I know that is because I had an opportunity to interview her office mate. Her office mate said that she was concerned about meeting him by himself. So what she did is she picked up the phone and she called and she said, look, I'm just not comfortable meeting you alone. He said, oh, don't worry, I will bring my wife. And so that gave Beverly peace. Beverly met him at the property, and when she got there, he was alone. He said, don't worry, my wife had to work, but just get her up on FaceTime and she can walk through the house with us. And those were the last images on Beverly's phone. Anyway, so his goal was to kidnap her for ransom. And he ended up kidnapping her and he murdered her. They found her body later. When they interviewed him, they asked, why did you kidnap her? Why did you pick Beverly? His answer was that she was a rich broker who worked alone. Having had an opportunity to meet her son and to hear his presentation and to watch the Dateline show, what I understood is that Beverly's family had financial problems. So he was basing that on a perception that all real estate agents are financially successful. What happened after her murder is that her family sued the brokerage, sued them for neglect. They said, had there been a safety plan in place, we believe that Beverly would be here today. As a result of that, I decided, what can I do? How can I solve the problem? Then I saw another story not too long after that, where there was a real estate agent in Atlanta who had a listing and he hired a photographer to take pictures of the listing. What the real estate agent failed to do is to tell the seller that a photographer was coming, failed to tell the photographer that the seller may be home. The seller was home, the photographer entered the property. She thought her house was being burglarized. She took off to her bedroom to go hide. And the photographer walked through the house not knowing she was there. She started shooting through the wall. She hit him a couple of times. She didn't kill him. Guess what he did? He sued the real estate company, he sued the agent, and he sued the seller. So again, I'm thinking, what is missing here? Who is talking to brokers, managers, and owners about how to not get sued successfully? Anybody can sue. My job is to tell you how to put practices and procedures in place so that your agents have a safety plan in place where there's no question that safety is important to your brokerage. That way, if something were to happen and you are there on the witness stand being grilled, you can say, this is what I did to protect my agents. These are the steps that I took. I wrote a handbook, and you all are going to get this Safe Practices Handbook. And this is like a guide once we're done today. So you can implement these safe practices in your office and then have the agent sign off on them. That way, if anything ever happens to an agent and they say, you didn't tell us this, or you didn't provide expert-led training, you can say, time out, I did. So that's going to help in your defense. So that is what motivated me to create this class, is to show you that safety training is important in this industry, but it starts at the top. You have to show that it's important. Then another question is, do consumers know that safety is important? One thing you're going to find out is that all of my training has a consumer focus. Not only is that how I've been able to get my classes, whether it's the broker class or the real estate class, approved in, I want to say, I haven't counted, I need to count, over 30 or so states. It's because it has a heavy consumer focus. I teach agents to lead with safety. Not only are they supposed to work safe in a safe manner, but they're supposed to teach the consumer, that's the buyers, the sellers, even the FSBOs, how to maneuver this real estate business in a safe manner. So all of their conversations will focus on safety. And if you all have ever attended my real estate agent safety class, you'll see that that's what I'm talking about. Here's how you can be safe as an agent, but wait a minute, here's how you protect this consumer. Every conversation needs to have safety as a part of it. So the question is, how do you show safety as a manager? That's what we're going to accomplish today. You're going to do that by having regular expert safety training. You can do that in your office, or you can do that in conjunction with the board. However, what I have found is that a lot of boards and associations invite me in to do safety training, but all of the agents don't show up. So therefore, a brokerage has not said to the agents, you need to go to this training. This is training that I recommend that you take. If you're not going to have it yourself, lean on your board, and your board definitely, as they are today, will provide expert-led safety training. You're going to implement a safety plan. We're going to do that today. Not only will you have safety policies, you're going to have to actually support them. You have to enforce them. You have to show that safety is serious. Otherwise, everybody talks about safety during September Real Estate Safety Month, and the rest of the year, there are no conversations unless something happens to an agent. Question: are real estate companies required to provide safety training? Yes or no?
I'm going to take a shot at it and say no.
Okay, excellent. Anyone else have a thought about that? Anyone else know whether or not, as brokers, managers, or owners, if you all are mandated to provide any kind of safety training? Any other thoughts?
I believe our E&O insurance coverage does ask that question. So I wouldn't say it's required, but I would say that I know it's asked of us when we're doing our E&O renewal as a firm.
So Tony, are they saying, do you provide safety training for your agent? And it's just a standalone question. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, something along that line, like you're attesting to the fact that you do provide it, or that it is an opportunity is given to agents for that safety, as well as cybersecurity. I believe it's twofold. I think it's two separate questions, at least with the company the carrier that we had.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, that's an excellent point that that I need to make sure to ask other leadership as we go forward. If you're attesting to the fact that you're providing it, are you providing it? Making sure that it's actually done, because again, if there's an issue, then you could be liable. And my goal is to help you reduce your liability by actually having that safety training. So excellent, excellent point. During one of my interviews, I got to interview the senior counsel for NAR. And when I asked him that, our brokerage is required, this is his answer. His answer is simple. He says they're required to supervise their agents. So the question is, are they required to offer safety training? And if you read his answer, the answer is no. So I remember talking to some brokers before about this, and they're saying we can't require our agents to do anything because they're independent contractors. So therefore they can do what they want. We cannot require them to do anything. Is that true? Can you all require? Oh, go ahead.
I would argue it would depend on what your company policies state.
Okay, keep in mind that, and that's accurate. Keep in mind that independent contractors, that's a tax status, an IRS status, to determine if they're an employee or an independent contractor. But when it says that you cannot tell agents what to do whatsoever, can you tell them they have to take ethics training? Can you tell them that they have to take forms training or legal forms training? Can you tell them that they need to take marketing training or any kind of training? Can you tell them that they have to complete the whatever it is in your state, 12 hours or 15 hours of CE? Yes or no?
I believe yes.
Thank you. Exactly. Then you can, because you can't have an agent working in your office who says, I don't have to do what you tell me to do. I'm an independent contractor. I choose not to take ethics training. I choose not to get my core standards or the continuing education credits that I need. So there is a somewhat gray area that's not so great. So the question is, can you mandate that your agents participate in safety training? So let's say after today, you see the light and you said, oh, in order to cover myself, I need to make sure my agents have safety training. And therefore, imagine the situation. Think about even in the Beverly Carter situation. We don't know the end result of that case because it got dismissed because it was past the statute of limitations. So we don't know what the end result would have been. If the courts would have said, as a company, the real estate company, you should have provided a minimum safety education for your agents, We don't know what they would have said, and we don't know what the answer will be across the country. So the question is, can you mandate safety training? And the bottom line is that I've heard from everyone I've talked to is no, you can't do it. So that's why I am saying is you need to take the approach that safety is important to you as a company. It's a conversation you have with agents when they come on board. If every single meeting that you have, someone's talking about safety, and then we'll talk about it later, establishing a safety committee. It needs to be at least one staff member, at least one real estate agent, and they are the safety committee, and they're the ones who make sure safety stays top of mind. It doesn't have to be big and involved, but they could be the ones who can have one topic per sales meeting. Every single meeting, somebody needs to talk about safety. So they can have one topic. Hey, this meeting, we're going to talk about open house safety. You can use the content that I've created. I'm going to share that with you, or you can go to the NAR, the Realtor website. There is overwhelming safety content there. They can pull something out in every meeting. Here's the safety tip of the day. We're talking about open house safety today. We're talking about screening today. We're talking about auto safety today. So every single meeting, there's a conversation about safety. They could even take it as far as to print a safety quote or saying, post it on the break room walls, change it every week or so that when your agents come in, they'll see, oh, here's the safety quote of the day, or here's the safety tip here, and we're hearing it at a meeting, and it's always a part of the conversation. Another thing is content, sharing the content. I know you all share information with your agents. Here's some social media marketing tips, here's some video creation tips, here's how you grow your business. Also include safety content on your social media and your emails. Any contact with your agents, talk about safety, and after a while, it's second nature, and they know safety is important to you. It's not just once a year. I can't say that enough. I don't want to be popular just once a year, and it needs to be an ongoing conversation. Here's one of the resources, and I will give you a lot of resources as we go along. If you go to Realtor Magazine, I wrote a series of 3 articles about why your office needs a safety policy. That's one. And the number one thing you can see there is liability, to reduce your liability. Here's one thing that I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of education directors across the country at associations and boards. And when I'm telling them that it's important not only to have, again, the latest social media speaker telling agents how to do that, or the latest video creation speakers, why safety expertise is valued, or why it should be valued. So often in this business, and you can probably relate to this as real estate agents, when you think about the FSBO complex. The FSBO complex is when you have a homeowner who says, I can sell my own house. I don't need a real estate agent. What do they know? All I have to do is put a for sale sign in the front yard, write a contract, and save the commission. What's the big deal? What I ask my agents is, what do you say to FSBOs to convince them that they need you? They say, I am professional, I am trained, I have experience, right? So that goes back to you as a leader. When it's time for any kind of training that you offer, you go directly to experts. That means for your legal training, you're going to attorneys. For marketing, you're going to someone who has proven that they can market social media. You're going to check them out online and make sure they actually know what they're talking about, that they have engagement, that they're posting. You're going to check them out. I'm telling you to do the exact same thing for safety, because if you ever get in a situation where your agents have been harmed in some way, no matter which degree, and they say, you could have solved this, you could have stopped this, you can always point to the fact that, hey, I brought in a subject matter expert, someone who does nothing but safety. Here are their credentials. So when it's easy to have just anyone talk about safety, or we'll have Susie, do our safety training, and Susie does other training, or Susie is a part-time this or that. Value expertise, just like you tell the consumer. Value your expertise, value safety expertise, because that's going to serve you if you ever have to go to court. One of the articles that you will find there is how to find the right safety trainer. So there's a checklist. There are credentials that you need to look for that will serve you well if you ever are in litigation. And then it also talks about, the third article are fundamentals that every safety program should have. So after we get done today, all of you all are going to be excited and eager to send your agents to safety training at your association there, or you're going to host it on your own, whatever it is, but safety training will be top of mind for you. So you need a checklist to make sure that your safety program covers everything that it needs to cover, this is where you go to find the article about those 3 articles that I just referenced to you. That's homework. That's reading material for you all later. This is another article. This was in the Houston Realtor magazine, and this highlights some of the actual practices that will help you reduce your liability, because that's the name of the game. Not only caring for your agents, but making sure that your business is protected and your business is safe. One thing that I had an opportunity to do is I get to talk to businesses outside of the real estate arena. I get to talk to them about why it's important for their employees to be safe off the clock. So that would apply to you as leaders as well. Everybody in your office is not a real estate agent. You have staff members. And even where there are real estate agents, someone needs to talk to them about being safe. And the reason it's important to you as a business owner is that it impacts your bottom line, and it's the right thing to do. I'm going to be speaking this week, Realtor.com. I get to share general safety tips for those in attendance, and it's open to everyone. So I get to share general safety tips. And it is important to you as a broker that if your employee or your agent is off the clock, so to speak, and they get burglarized, or if they get assaulted, or if they're involved in any kind of crime, that impacts their ability to work and to produce for you. So I say that that is just as important. And it impacts your bottom line. So it's important that you make sure they are safe even when not on the clock. The pandemic has taught us all so many different ways to work in our businesses, and we've all had to change our business model. I had to go virtual just like everyone else. So I had to buy equipment, set up an office, set up a studio and space in order to work virtually. There are specific things that real estate agents do virtually that I talk to them about during their training. And again, that's a whole different program, but just to summarize it for you, I'm telling them to keep the same virtual meetings. Last year, and so many states closed down, and what I'm finding is some states didn't close down, and the ones that I've gone to, it seems like they're the ones that didn't close down. But what I'm finding is that when we had the pandemic and you couldn't go meet a client, you had to say, let's jump on a Zoom, let's do a FaceTime, let's do a Google Duo, let's just do a really quick virtual meeting or a call, and then we can work from that step. Every single one of us had to do that. I am saying that's a practice that we need to keep. You all remember when we used to talk about CITO, CITO, come into the office. So the goal was to have your agents have brand new clients come into the office before they met them in the field. Does anybody know why we told them to go into the office first? And I'm sure some of you all at some point did it as well. What was the goal, the reason to have your agents meet new clients in the office before showing them? Anyone? Unmute your microphone.
To vet the client and make sure that it was a safe person to work with, and you had the people around you to help if needs be.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. 2 things. 1, to vet the client, and number 2, witness potential. So if a criminal is going to do something to you, they don't want witnesses. They don't want someone who can identify them. So think about in the Beverly Carter situation. He could have gone into her office, but his goal was to meet her in that property. That was the end goal, because there was no one to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. And there were no witnesses left behind to tell who he was. What I'm saying in that article, and that's something you all can read later, the virtual meeting should still be in place. It should still be a part of the real estate agent's policies, because it does 2 things. 1, it increases witness potential. If you tell a new client, hey, let's jump on a real quick a virtual call, everyone's had to do it now. So there's no more excuse. I'm not technologically savvy, or I don't know how to do it. Everyone's had to do it. So let's keep that going. And then secondly, find out what they need and what they want. Think about how easy it is to share a screen and to show them some properties from the comfort of your home or your office. And then that saves time, energy, and gas. So agents can show them, here's a property I'm thinking about showing you. The client can look at the screen and say, oh no, I don't like the layout. Absolutely not. Look at the gas and the time that they save. So I am teaching real estate agents to continue your virtual first meeting, because it's going to make you more productive, and it's also going to keep you safer. And then we talk about safe open houses, why that's a good idea. So that is an article there that you are welcome to share with your agents in your office. The other article I wrote are the 10 best practices to protect your business. We're going to talk about that today, but that article is a great refresher, great opportunity for you to read and even share with fellow brokers and managers who could not be here today. So the bottom line today is teaching you how to not get sued successfully. You have that handbook. Let's talk about the risk of the jobs that your agents have to do. Can someone tell me a risk of the job of a real estate agent? What do they face every day?
Car accident?
Go ahead. Say again.
Car accident? You're always
A
in your
car
car.
accident. They're in their cars an awful lot. Give me one more. Somebody give me one more. Thank you for that. Give me one more risk that your agents face on a daily basis when they leave their houses, their homes to go to work. One more.
I would say accidentally leaving a front door open and the house gets vandalized or something.
Oh, that's a different one. Yeah, accidentally leaving the door unlocked. Exactly. Great points. The real estate agent's job description reads that they make a living meeting complete strangers in empty houses. You all make a living sitting in empty houses, waiting for strangers to walk in. How does that sound for a job description? How many of you all knew that the US Department of Labor considers real estate sales and leasing a high-risk, hazardous occupation? Anyone ever heard that before? It's dangerous. Think about when in the wee hours of the morning, if you pull into a convenience store parking lot and there may be one clerk working behind the counter and you look at them and you think, they're crazy. Who would do that job? That's dangerous. The US Department of Labor puts your job right up there with a convenience store clerk. What about taxi drivers, or nowadays it would be Uber drivers? They put your job up there with security guards and law enforcement officials. There are dangers in the jobs that you do and that your agents do. My goal, my job is to remove those dangers so that you can make a living, but do so in a safe manner. I can't tell you how many times I've had story-eyed new agents say, I never thought about this. No one ever told me. And it happens more than it should when agents come to me and say, we never even think about this. Not top of mind, whatever. And I'm always happy and I go overboard thanking agents when they show up for safety training because they typically don't see value in it. So whenever a leader encourages them to go, that's a win for me. I got selected to speak at the National Association of Realtors conference this year in November in San Diego. The topic that I was chosen to speak about is lessons learned in crimes against real estate agents. What I have found is that there are crimes that occur, no one has any idea. When the Beverly Carter situation, when her murder occurred, all of a sudden the industry woke up and it's like nothing I've ever seen. You all, of course, are familiar with the Ashley Oakland story. After that occurred, for a year or so, everybody was talking about real estate safety. How can this happen? We don't believe this has happened. And then everything just kind of went dormant for a while. And then Beverly Carter got murdered. For some reason, that story is sticking and it is staying. Her story, and because one of the reasons is her son is talking about it, everyone's talking about it because she did something that so many of us as agents have done, that I've done, my sister has done. She's done something that we all have done. So when people hear the story, they think twice. And I've heard people say, you know, that changed the way I do business. I do business differently after I saw what happened to her. So my goal is to show you the stories, and that's what NAR wanted me to do, is to talk about the stories against agents, and not just talk about the stories, but talk about the lessons learned. We never blame victims, but what we do is we learn what happened, and then we implement practices so that that doesn't happen again. So one of the recent, so what we need to do is we need to take a look at the recent crimes against agents, and sometimes it gets, I don't know what the word is, heavy or depressing to talk about the crimes against agents. But what I have found is after I do so, I get so many agents who come up to me and said, thank you for sharing those stories. That makes it more real. I didn't think it happened here where I live. I didn't think it happened because I work in the daytime only. I only work in so-called good neighborhoods, and I thought I was safe. So let us go through some of the stories and briefly talk about them, because that is truly how we learned. You all remember this story. I'm going to say that was last year. A real estate agent in Houston was missing, and this one really took hold on social media. Everybody was commenting about where is she, what happened to her, was this real estate related? We weren't sure. What we know is that she was in Texas, and then they found her in her car alive in Louisiana. To this day, we still don't know if it was related, real estate related, but what we know is social media really got active and involved, and agents were talking about safety. That happens to be my twin sister. My twin sister is an agent, and she also happens to be a landlord or housing provider, as they call it. Here's what you need to watch for. Here's what's coming in regards to real estate safety. And this is why I developed a property management safety class. You all are familiar with the eviction moratorium, and you're familiar with the tenant movement. Is it a big deal there? Do you have the cancel rent or hashtag rent strike? Is that a big deal where you are now? Are tenants really out there saying there should be no evictions, there should be free housing for everyone? Is that a big deal? I can't hear. Would you say, Jeff?
I don't believe it is here. I mean, I'm sure it's there, and people that are in the property management, roles probably have to live it every day. But, in my position as a real estate agent, it's not hitting me between the eyes.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And here's what I know. My sister, if you all saw, I want to say about a month ago, every time you turned on the TV, NAR engaged her to be the spokesperson on behalf of the members who are involved, whether you work with investors or property management or anything in that area. She was the one who was on Fox News. She was in I think the Wall Street Journal. She was on CNBC talking about the property managers, or they call them housing providers, instead of landlords. What about us? There are dangers involved. So if you have agents working in this area, if it's not there, she said it's just a matter of time, or she said it is there, but you don't really know it yet. So if you Google her name, you're going to see all of the interviews, and you'll see that it's something that's on NAR's radar, and it's something that may be coming to an area near you. But here in Kansas City, it is overwhelming to the point where she has been threatened with a guillotine. And I guess that's their threat for people who they think are profiteers or who are actually benefiting off the backs of poor people. They shouldn't be profiting over people. So that is a big area that you need to be careful of. Anyway, so there was a tenant who was going to get evicted, and a process server went to evict him. Just so happens that the tenant had a gun, but the process server was a law enforcement official. He had a gun too. So he was able to respond and defend himself and shoot the tenant, but he didn't kill the tenant. But the narrative was, look what they're doing to tenants. So again, my sister had a guillotine, threatened with a guillotine. The judge had 100 protesters strong on his front porch. The attorney who served legal evictions, she was targeted as well. And this is happening across the country. And this is a story again. So that's an area that you need to be concerned with, because again, she said, if it's not there now, it's there and you don't know it, or it's coming. So be careful. Last summer in Seattle, a tenant was getting evicted. What the tenant did, because they didn't want to go anywhere, because of course there's a eviction moratorium, is they shot and killed the service manager and shot and wounded the property manager. You all probably heard the story about the real estate agent in Virginia who was hosting an open house, who had someone come in. He left, came back in with a wrench. He beat her in the head area 12 to 15 times with the wrench. Just so happens that she was a black belt. She was able to put up a fight, so she survived. When it comes to real estate offices, there was a time, I want to say this was back in 2012, but there was a shooting in a real estate office back in 2012, but there have been some recently. This was this past summer in San Antonio, real estate office. There was a shooting, and also it happened in New Jersey. This agent here in January of 2019 was shot and killed when he went to evict tenants. This one happened in Colorado. This was back in 2019. A real estate agent was standing in a room with a consumer. He was there to look at the house or open house. He opened up his coat. He had a gun. I'm sorry, he had a knife and he had a can of bear spray. She happened to have a gun. So she started shooting and he took off. She survived. This one is in California. This was a couple of years ago. This one made national news, and I'm guessing you all saw this. This real estate agent held an open house the previous week, and a guy came in. She was uncomfortable with him, and when he left, she was happy. The next weekend, she held an open house again. He came back. At this point, she was not nice and she was not patient. She said, "You are not here to see the house. You've got to go." What this real estate agent had done is she had studied the house. She knew there was a camera on the porch, and her goal was to get him on camera just in case something happened. So she led him outside. If you look down, you see that her identity is blocked, but you see that grassy patch to the left bottom of the screen. He pushed her on that patch and he started to assault her outside. I can still hear her blood curdling screams. He got tired of it after a while and he left. She survived. These are stories that I am talking to real estate agents about to say, no matter where you live, no matter what time of day or night, these crimes are happening now and you need to pay attention. And again, NAR believes that lessons learned is a way to reach agents. I'm not done. Realtor magazine, I wrote an article about the 6 things that agent did right to survive that attack. And she did several things right, including paying attention. And this is an article that I share with agents telling them, you need to pay attention. And if you're not doing these things, you need to do them. Probably the most important thing is she trusted her gut. Her gut said that he was dangerous and he was not there to see the house. And secondly, she wasn't interested in being nice. She said, "You've got to go. You're not here to see the house." So she spoke up and she was aware of the fact that there was a camera. So she did several things right in order to survive. Back in last year, I got a call from the Houston Association that they had a real estate agent who was receiving harassing phone calls. So this agent was getting phone calls that started out at first, he was a legitimate client. He had business related questions. Then it started to become personal. And she said, "Look, I'm not interested. You need to stop calling me." He threatened to rape her. And she said, "Going forward, you'll talk to my husband." Her husband started answering her calls and he threatened to kill them. They went to law enforcement officials. It turned out that over 100 agents over the past decade had been on the receiving end of those calls, whether the same person or a different person. So there were things that they needed to do, processes that they needed to put in place in order to stop that. We're going to talk about what those processes are, a certain way to make sure you report it and to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. In about 5 minutes or so, we're going to take a break. So hang in there with me. I want to say this was last year. A real estate agent was standing out in front of her listing. These 2 fellas drove up in a car and said, "May we get your business card?" She reached into the car to hand them her business card. They grabbed her arm, tried to pull her in and kidnap her. She was able to get away and she got to the safety of her car. She called the police. These are their mugshots. They were arrested. Are you tired yet? The stories go on, but imagine the impact that the stories make when real estate agents find out this is really happening and it's happening around me. I need to take safety seriously. Monique Bao was a real estate agent on New Year's Eve of last year. Same situation as Beverly Carter. She got a phone call that someone that she didn't know wanted to see a property. She met them at the property. She met the guy at the property. His wife ended up getting arrested too. So same situation like Beverly Carter, a couple. And a lot of times real estate agents think if it's a couple, everything's okay. And I always say, remember Bonnie and Clyde, they can work in pairs. She got a phone call. She met that so-called buyer at that house. He ended up kidnapping her and killing her. This happened last year, December, end of last year. This was in Omaha. Real estate agent Mickey was at a house and he and his son had just bought an investment property. He went over to deliver papers or keys or something. And then they killed him and then buried his body, hid his body in the crawl space. March of this year, this real estate agent was standing in front of a property, had just left, dropped off keys or paperwork. A 15-year-old approached them with a gun and said, "Get in the car, we're going for a ride." They went to 2 ATM machines. He pulled out $500 at each one. After he got his $1,000, he shot and killed this real estate agent. This happened this summer, maybe July. in Nashville, a real estate agent was standing in front of a property, opening the lockbox with his clients there. A teenager, again, for whatever reason, approached him with a gun and said, "You better run for your life." The real estate agent said based on the aggression and the way he was talking to him, he knew he was serious. He threw his keys and he took off running. That agent survived. His car was stolen. He just so happened to have left an iPad in his car with the location enabled. Law enforcement officials were able to recover his car. This summer, I want to say last month, this real estate agent was in Kentucky with his wife. He went to a property that he owned. And there was a tenant there who shot and killed him and his wife. We don't know if it's tied to the eviction moratorium. We don't have that information. All we know is that he went to his investment property where he was killed. In California, a couple of siblings were in a debate over whether or not to sell their parents' house. 2 real estate agents and a home inspector showed up. The home inspector was shot and killed. The 2 real estate agents were shot and wounded. This is another story that you all saw in the news. This real estate agent went to show a property with his client and his client's 15-year-old son. Just so happens that the house he was showing had been burglarized the week before. A neighbor saw him there and saw a car which looked like the same car that was there before. And she called the police and said, "Hey, I think the guy is back." So the police came and they were responding to a burglary in process. The real estate agent was looking outside. He said, "Oh, there's a lot of police. Somebody's in trouble." He didn't know they were coming because of the phone call. They were coming for them. If you all remember looking at the videos, you saw him, his client, the 15-year-old son outside with their hands up, and then you saw them handcuffed until he can convince the police officer that he was a real estate agent. At that point, the police officer apologized, sent him on his way. He retained an attorney. He is suing. So the big question around that, and I talked to agents about this, as you can imagine, it's a hot button issue. It's like, do you think this was a safety issue? I have heard back from so many agents of all races, both genders, that this has happened to me. I've had the police called on me. So this agent is saying he was racially profiled. That's what he believes. Other agents have said this has happened to me. My sister had the police call, but the alarm went off. But it's happened to a lot of agents. So the training part of me says, how do you prevent this? I had an agent say, "Well, I have my vehicle wrapped. I have my company. There's no question that the car belongs to a real estate agent." Another agent said, "I have a magnet on my door that says my real estate company." Another one, he said that I wear my name badge. Another one said, "I am loud. When I see neighbors, I say, 'Hi, I'm a real estate agent.' I introduce myself." So there are things that agents can do to remove some of the danger. I tell you all of those stories. And again, it's kind of, I don't know what the word, depressing, but I have to show you that these crimes are happening against agents. And for those of you, and I don't know if anyone here said it, I can't see you all, but for those who say they didn't understand, they didn't believe that real estate sales was a dangerous occupation, even as defined by the US Department of Labor, those stories bring the message home. It's happening everywhere. It's happening to male agents, it's happening to female agents, it's happening in all parts of the country. So real estate safety is important, and that's how I get agents' attention. Now I'm a little depressed and we're going to take a break. I mean, there's a lot of information. I think how heavy the information is, but it needs to be said. The stories need to be told. And I am seeking stories for my program at NAR. So if you all know of any real estate agents who have stories to tell, I am definitely looking for them. I don't want to keep telling the same stories, but if you all have any, reach out to me and I'll make sure you have my contact information. I would love to talk to them, not only for the program, but also when I write articles, I interview agents. So if it is okay with everyone, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back in exactly 10 minutes, which will be, you look at my clock, right at the top of the hour. And then we're going to go into our second hour. So I'll see you on the other side of the break. Okay, we have about a minute left, so 1 minute for everyone to get back in place. Okay, and everyone needs to remember their cameras. They need to be on camera for the CE part of the class, please. Okay, let's go ahead and get started back. Thank you all for coming back after that. Anyone have any comments on anything that we've covered so far? Again, at the end of the presentation, we'll more than likely go all the way up to the end. I've got a lot of information to share, so we may not have time for a Q&A at the end. Anyone have any questions or comments on anything that we've covered so far? You can unmute your microphone and jump in.
I think I'll wear my name badge more often.
Right, to be identified. Understood.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. And plus it's good marketing. Imagine when you're out in public, right? And people see it, it starts the conversation. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that, Pam. Anyone else? One of the things that motivates, inspires me is whenever these crimes occur, and I am, how do I say this? I never stop. I live and breathe real estate safety. I know the crimes that they occur. I get the emails. I know the stories, and you can see I pretty much know them by heart. So I've got it all up here. And one of the things that I don't want is when a crime occurs is to have to see the interviews with the real estate agents or the brokers or the associations saying, you know, we're sorry this happened and this is what we should have done. This is what we could have done. This is what we're doing. My goal is to make sure that, first of all, it doesn't happen. And secondly, if it does, that you have the tools to deal with it so that you're not on TV. Uh-oh, hold on, let me get my technology. So that you're not the one on TV in one of those interviews, like a deer in headlights. I want you to have information and tools and hopefully to prevent that. Okay, so let's understand the risk of the job. We already talked about the job description. I'm going to show you a couple of screens, and I want you to look at the screens, look at the names, look at each box. I'm going to show you, and I had to add another page. Look at each box. Look at the names. I'm going to go back here. Tell me what you notice about the names of these real estate agents. What do you notice? You see a theme? Anyone see a theme amongst the names of the agents that are on the screen?
They're all men.
Thank you. They're all male agents. When I talk to real estate agents about safety, so often it's usually female agents, a majority female agents. There may be a couple of guys sprinkled throughout, and to them, I always thank them for coming. But as you can see on the screen, and let me give you a brief rundown if we can take just a little bit more. David Abbasi was a real estate agent in Atlanta during Safety Month of 2016. He was killed while working. Ryan Vega is a real estate agent in Las Vegas who was stabbed in the neck also during Safety Month of the same year while working. Sidney Cranston Jr.'s body was discovered 18 months after he met a client that he didn't know and was showing. Lane Gamble is a real estate agent in North Carolina who was sitting in front of a house who had a gun put to his head as he was waiting for a client. Unnamed agent 618, if you all And it took me a minute to put two and two together. If you all are watching the NAR safety series, they have a new video out where they're talking to a couple of agents who have been victimized. One of those agents is a male agent. And he is talking about the story that I'm a big guy. I never thought it would happen to me. And they interviewed him, and I put two and two together. That would be this agent that we call John Doe. At first, he wasn't identified. Back in 6/18, that he went to a showing. His wife went with him. She was sitting in the car. He went inside and he was ambushed. I think it was 3 people. And you can see, I can still see him. He shows where they hit him in the head, and he had head injuries, but they ambushed him inside. Meanwhile, his wife is sitting outside, or else they would have stolen the car. Frank Wayman, a broker in a small town in Missouri, who let someone in his office either for water or to use the restroom, and they ended up holding him at machete point. David Stocco was the real estate agent who was evicting a tenant who was killed. We talked about Mickey, he's the agent in Nebraska. Today we talked about Stefano Barboso, the real estate agent in Nashville, Tennessee, who was outside the property with his clients. And then Christopher Hager was the real estate agent who got shot and killed with his wife. These are all male agents. I was in a classroom, and I had a classroom full of women agents. We got to the screen, and I said, like, where are the guys? And then one of the agents said there was a guy, a male agent here. She said, but as soon as he saw what the topic was, he got up and left. He said, this is for the female agents. He's the one who should have been sitting in the classroom, right? I wrote an article back in 2017 for Realtor magazine. This was the most read article of the entire year on the website about male agent safety. This hit a nerve, and it was the most read article of the year. What I'm saying to you is, when you're talking to your agents about safety, the conversation needs to be for not only your male agents, it needs to be, your female agents, it needs to be your male agents. You need to impress upon them the fact that this is happening to both genders. And when the National Association of Realtors surveyed real estate agents, I want to say, here's my memory. I want to say 36% of the female agents, was it 25%, feared for their safety. You know what? I actually have the notes somewhere. Anyway, feared for their safety while working. Here it is. Okay, 25% of the women realtors reported experiencing a situation that made them fear for their personal safety or the security of their personal information. 15% of the male agents felt that way. This is the 2020 NAR member safety report. We've got some educating to do when it comes to male agents. Male agents need to realize that they can be victimized as well. And as the leadership, that's going to fall upon your shoulders. You're welcome to share this article with them, or you can just go, you can find it by going to nar.realtor website, type in my name, that article will show up. And also more recently, August, which would have been this last month, I wrote this article for Risk Media, where I talk about the stories that I shared with you all today. Are they in more danger? And then we talked about the lessons learned. I strongly encourage you to share these articles with all of the agents in your office, including the male agents, because like the agent in the NAR video said, he said, I'm this big guy. I never expected it to happen to me. So what he is saying is he tuned it out. And so many agents that you all know say, I'll go with the female agents if they have an issue, if they're concerned or scared. And I'm telling them, you need someone to go with you as well. You need to be alert. You need to pay attention. And when I interviewed the agents, I was asking, why do you all not feel that you are in danger? And one agent said the machismo factor. He said, nothing's going to happen to us. I'm a big guy. And I keep hearing that. I promise you, I heard that. Was it in Columbia or was it in Montana this past week? Or in both classes, as a matter of fact, I'm a big guy. No one's going to bother me. No one's going to approach me. Wrong. So all agents need to wake up. Here's a part of the training that I talk to agents about that I must talk to you about, because the message needs to get through to them. And again, I have to give you a peek into what I'm teaching your agents so that you know when they come back to your office what you need to support, what you need to enforce, and what they're learning, so that you can be there and make sure that they're following through. I tell agents to not judge a book by its cover. So often there are agents, and I hear it all the time. Oh, if they look scraggly, I'm not dealing with them. Or if they look unkempt, not happening. Or, I can tell if they're not well dressed, I know. And I am here to say, you can't judge a book by its cover, because it's going to either get you hurt or worse, or it could also cost you business. And then this is, again, something to be reinforced in the office. I used to ask the question, what characteristic of someone, give me a physical description of someone that you don't want to see walk in your open house. Give me a physical description of someone that you do not want to show up for a viewing. And then agents would come from all over the place. Someone with a lot of piercings, someone with a lot of tattoos, or if they're in dark clothes, or if they're in disheveled clothes. So I got a whole gamut of physical characteristics that agents were on the lookout for. I had to tell them to stop. Let's talk about judging a book by its cover. Take a look at the picture on the screen. I tell agents, if you are the agent who is making a judgment based on what someone looks like, even what they drive, and you are in a luxury neighborhood, you have a luxury listing, and then this guy shows up to see your luxury listing or your luxury property, and you are judging a book by its cover, you're making a mistake. Does anyone know who this is? Who can tell me who this fella is?
Is it Sam Walton?
Thank you. It is Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, who was one of the richest men in, if not the world, at least the country. So how many agents would have looked at him and said, he can't afford anything that I've got, not even giving him the time of day. That judgment would have cost you business. Take a look at this picture. If we're going by what someone looks like, we're judging a book by its cover. If this fella walks into a listing anywhere, who knows who that is?
Ted Bundy.
Thank you. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a notorious serial killer. And whenever people describe Ted Bundy, how did they describe him? You guys remember? What are the words they used to describe Ted Bundy?
Good looking guy.
He was a nice guy.
Exactly. Nice, clean cut, charming, good looking guy, right? And if you all remember Ted Bundy's story, he would wait in parking lots and he would put his arm in a cast or have crutches, and he would ask women to help him to his vehicle. And then people looked at him and they judged him. It's like, what could he do wrong? That judgment could have cost people their lives. So I'm telling agents, you don't judge a book by its cover. So then the question is, what do you do? What do you use? Every animal in nature is born with a built-in survival mechanism that is hardly ever wrong. It's called your gut intuition, instinct, fight or flight, sixth sense. Some even call it spidey sense. Whatever it is, that's the one thing that if you don't hear anything else, you need to understand that your body is hardly ever wrong. I lead my presentations with agents with this: trust your gut. And then if there's a situation, and so often we ignore it for a number of reasons, but I can tell you what the number one reason is. I share a story about a couple of agents who were veterans in the business. They've both been in the business over 20 years each. One agent was excited because she was going to meet a new client, a doctor, and show him mansions in the rich part of town. She was excited. She told the agent on board duty, let me know when my client gets here. So the agent on board duty, and I'm probably dating myself using that term, I don't know if you guys still say that now, but the agent on board duty sees a guy walk in, he's got on his lab coat, and she walks back to the agent. She said, your client's here. She said, but I've got a bad feeling about him. She said, what are you talking about? She said, I can't put my finger on it. I've got a bad feeling. How well do you know him? She says, I don't know him, but I'm going to go show him houses this afternoon. She said, can you please cancel the showing until you get some information on him and get to know him? She said, you're so silly. She went to go show the doctor houses that afternoon. She got a call a little bit later on, and it was a doctor. She says, you're talking weird. What are you talking about? He said, what are you talking about? She said, you're talking as if we've never met. And he said, what are you talking about? We haven't. She said, I showed you houses this afternoon. You had on your lab coat, name tag on. We spent the afternoon together. He said, someone broke into my office 2 weeks ago and stole my lab coat. It wasn't me. She went back to the other agent. She said, what did you see that I missed? The other agent said, at the time, I couldn't tell. She said, I had a funny feeling in the pit of my gut. The hairs were standing up on both arms and the back of my neck. My heart was beating fast, that funny feeling. She said, I couldn't place it at the time. She said, but after you left and I had some time, she said, then it hit me. He had on his lab coat. Let me ask you guys, how many times have you been in a grocery store and seen a doctor walking around with his lab jacket on, his lab coat on? Doesn't happen. What about at a gas station pumping gas? Doesn't happen. She said the other thing, when he asked for you, he put his hands on the counter. His fingernails were absolutely filthy. How many of you all have seen a doctor with filthy fingernails? Doesn't happen. Agents need to trust their guts. Whatever that voice is, they need to listen to it, just like the agent in California who knew that the agent was up, that the client was up to no good. That's why she stopped being nice. She said, you've got to go. So I teach agents that they need to learn to stop being nice if their body is telling them something different. If they are wrong and they have to apologize or explain away in the future, so it goes. But the first step is listening to their bodies. This book ought to be required reading for everyone. Gavin DeBecker would be on Oprah all the time. That's where I found him. He wrote this book and he's guarded Supreme Court justices and a lot of famous people. He talks about the fear signals we all possess. It needs to be required reading. So let us talk about creating a game plan. You have to have a conversation with your agents about the clothes they wear. Now you're thinking, not going to happen. Here's where it's important. And typically what I say is, if you don't do it, I will do it. I'm talking to agents about not dressing professionally, but how to dress in a safe manner. I am telling agents, don't wear your fancy, expensive jewelry while you are working. We already know that there's a bullseye on agents. If Beverly Carter's murderer is saying, I picked her because she is a rich agent who works alone. Think about what real estate agents do. And my sister works for a company here in Kansas City. It's one of the Berkshire Hathaway companies. So it's a big company. And what they do when their agents do well on social media, they'll do a post, Stacy, sold $1 million last month or whatever, 8 million this month or whatever. So all of their top agents, they're constantly putting on the page, these are our top performing agents of the month. They put it on there for the world to see. I'll never forget, after one month, Stacy had a really good month. I think it was maybe that $1 million month. And then we went to a meeting and then we were talking about raising funds. And someone said, Stacy, you have $1 million. Why don't you just donate the money? People don't understand when real estate agents are saying, I sold $1 million, that's what, $17,000, $18,000 in commission. They think the real estate agents are all rich. So agents need to be very careful the way they dress. That means fancy, expensive jewelry should be saved for special occasions. I talk to female agents about not wearing high heel shoes when they work. It's sad that we're talking about shoes when we're talking about business, but that's reality. I was in Knoxville and I had an agent in the audience. She held up her shoe. She said, this stiletto is my weapon. So she held up her shoe and she said, this is when I work, I'm wearing heels. And my sister does too. She said, I'm wearing heels, but I will use this if I need to. In Kansas, I had an agent say that she had to use her heel to defend herself and the other person required stitches. What I'm saying is, for those of you who are not as inclined to use your shoes as a weapon, you need to be prepared that if you have to run out of a property or a house, and think about the stories that I've talked about, that they need to be ready to go. Agents are in their cars an awful lot if they're stuck on the side of the road and they don't have cell reception. And I keep talking to people in rural areas where that is a real issue. They may have to walk for help. So having comfortable shoes is imperative. This means jewelry. That means male agents too, the expensive jewelry. It also means ladies, when you carry those expensive designer handbags, that could make you a target, as well as all of you all in your electronics. A cell phone or smartphone is what, about $800, $1,000. So it makes you a target. So if you don't need it while you're using it, leave it. We talk about writing. Now, this is something, I don't know if it's a policy in your office, but some agents are not, who will not pick up a hitchhiker. And I always ask the question, who would pick up a hitchhiker? They're looking at me like I have two heads, but then they will meet a complete stranger or they will allow a stranger to ride in their car to go to a property. So I'm saying to them that that's not a good idea until they have been fully vetted. And then I said, well, now that there's a pandemic, I don't even need to talk about this. I was in South Dakota last year, and I was in Montana last week. Agents are writing clients in their cars with them. Maybe it's because those two states never closed. Maybe that's everywhere. I am not sure, but I thought that I didn't have to have the conversation. But I said to the one agent in South Dakota, it's like, well, at least you guys are wearing masks. There is a pandemic. He said, not unless the client is asking for it. So the question becomes the dangers of agents writing clients in the cars with them. If they're uncomfortable, sometimes agents have a hard time sharing that with the client. So in that situation, they have a couple of outs. They can say, you know, it's against our policy. Our policy could be our office policy, our team policy. It's against my policy, or my insurance agent may not like it. So that gives them an out to having a client in the car with them, at least until they're positive that they've been vetted and that they are legitimate clients. Here is an area that at one point, I almost gave up talking to agents about using pictures in their marketing. But then when my own sister said that she's going to continue using I call it our picture, she's going to continue using her picture. So then the question is why? Why, Stacy, are you putting your picture on a business card? Is it going to help you get more listings? Is it going to help you sell more houses? Her answer is, I am my business. And I talk to agents, they're saying we're marketing, we're branding. We want to be recognized in our neighborhoods and our communities. They want to be the real estate agent who's in the grocery store and someone says, hey, I see you all over the place. So I accept that the real estate community is going to use pictures. What I need for you all to do is to help me with this. You need to talk to your agents, especially the new agents, about using appropriate professional pictures. Was it a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to interview an agent, and whenever I interview agents for my articles, I always ask for a headshot. So I wanted to interview an agent. I said, send me a picture. The agent sends me a picture of her looking over her shoulder. It was almost a full body shot. Her hair is flowing down her back, and she sends me this picture. Like, I can't use this picture. I can't use it. So what I'm saying to you all is, especially when you have new agents, to have a conversation about the type of pictures that they're using. I'm on social media. I see real estate agents posting in the group, and these are the posts that get the high engagement. Which one of these headshots should I use? So they'll post different ones, and they'll be sitting down. You'll see full body shots. You'll see the looking over the shoulder shots. You'll see all kinds of pictures that are inappropriate. And instead of someone saying, stop it, they're saying, oh, that's a cute picture, or you look cute there. Someone needs to have a conversation. There is a safety expert that I've had the opportunity to talk with it as well as interview. He is saying that crimes against real estate agents are predatory in nature, as opposed to being opportunistic. You know, there happens to be a real estate agent here, we're going to victimize them. That criminals are specifically looking for real estate agents. He shared, and I regret that I don't have the picture here. He shared a picture of a headshot that would cause a criminal to think that agent is looking at me. And basically it was a head tilt and a friendly smile. And he's saying that a criminal's ability to personalize that picture makes her more of a target, as opposed to a straight ahead professional smile picture. So you all need to be having conversations with your agents, especially the new agents, telling them a professional headshot from the waist up, looking straight ahead, is the ideal picture that they need to use. And again, they're independent contractors, which is a tax status, but they are able to make their own decisions. But you're telling them that this is something that they need to consider. I'm telling you, that agent about a month ago when I saw her picture, it's still in my brain that no one talked to her. Okay, so you need to be careful how you use it. There are groups on social media that could cause issues for your agents. So does anyone here have any policy, any social media or picture policies about the type of posts or type of pictures that your agents can use? Anyone here? Maybe going forward, it's a conversation that you will have. This was a Google Plus group. It was about hot real estate agents. I can't show you all of the pictures on there because I don't want to get in trouble. This real estate agent has this picture on a billboard, and trying to see if her company name is on there. Her team name is on there. So there, that might, I don't see her company name, but anyway, the point is, this is how she is advertising her real estate business. She is saying her website visits went from 2,000 to 20,000. So she is okay with the response that she is getting. Male agents do it too. If you take a look at this real estate agent, look at the bottom line. He is saying you have to look at creative ways these days in order to grow his business. He said, even if it means pimping yourself out. So as a broker, manager, owner, I believe it is your business how you are being represented in the world, especially if your company name is being used. And I am looking here and I see the name of a real estate company there. Is he the owner? He's actually the owner. Very interesting. But I'm saying it is your business. I was in Vegas speaking about this topic, and I had a group of agents in the back, and I called them Glamazons. Everything was, they were all dolled up, and they had a problem with me saying this. They said, what is wrong with using your picture to market your business? I said, let me see your business card. The picture on the top left of the cat suits, that's a picture on their business card. This is their website. It says, call our hotline for any of our angels. What kind of phone calls do you think they might be getting for their business? You need to consider, if it's your business and you have agents out there, someone needs to have a conversation with the agents about the image that they're portraying, especially on behalf in the name of your company, without censoring them. At least have the conversation. This is the newest one out there. I saw this last week. This real estate agent is getting a lot of media attention, and then not necessarily just media attention. There's all kinds of conversation happening on social media. I don't know if any of you all have seen this. Some people are saying I would never work with him because of this cheesy advertising. And some people are saying I like him. I like that he's different. But the bottom line is, this is a real estate agent there. His company name is, and he is leveraging, he says it, I guess, better than any of us can say it. He said female agents use their sex appeal. They lead with sex when they're selling. So why can't I? I don't know if the owner of his real estate company, well, they are aware of it, obviously, but if they endorse that. So as an owner, broker, and manager, you need to determine if you need to have any kind of policy in place for agents. If not a policy, at least a suggestion that they're very careful about the way they portray or represent your business. We talked a lot about a lot of crimes against real estate agents, and I firmly believe that education is the answer. Education is the key to preventing those crimes from ever happening. If you look at any crime in general, not just in the real estate industry, but you can look at a crime and say, this is what could have happened, this is what should have happened to prevent it from ever happening again. So that's why I find value in what we are doing today. And again, I do this with the agent as well as brokers, managers, and owners. I don't know why that slide was just kind of right there in the middle, but there it was. Okay, let's talk a little bit about those harassing phone calls. We're talking lessons learned. In Houston, those agents were getting harassing phone calls. Earlier this year, there was a list of states where the harassing phone calls were occurring. There are about 4 or 5 states. And what I know is that this goes in cycles. It's happening all the time, but all of a sudden it will make the news and then everybody's paying attention. Have any of you all had any agents or yourself who have been targeted by harassing phone calls? And if so, how did you handle it? No one? And if not, it's a good thing. But here's what I'm saying. I had an agent who said I had harassing phone calls. They wouldn't stop. She said, so I blocked the number. And so now I'm done with it. I am saying that's not enough. That's not good enough. It doesn't solve the problem. If an agent is experiencing harassing phone calls, and this is where the handbook, the safety policy handbook comes into play, also with the pictures. That's again where you say to your agents, you know, here's our policy, or here's the recommended, an expert recommended policy about the type of pictures you use. And then here's where you turn to the harassing phone call section and say, here are the recommendations about how to handle harassing phone calls. First and foremost, they need to report it. They can report it to you. They should report it to you. The way they do that is you have an open conversation with them. If any of you all have ever gotten any harassing text messages, phone calls, even on social media, I need to know about it as the owner of this company. You need to know. What you need to do as the leadership in the company is you need to report it to your association. I saw, I want to say about a month ago, a real estate agent had been harassed, and she said, I'm going to post a picture of this guy. I'm going to tell where he lives, and I'm going to warn all of my fellow agents to beware and be careful of him. I had to jump in the conversation because everyone was like, "Oh, girl, that's the thing to do. You know, criminals need to be outed like that. Good for you." I had to jump in and say, "Time out, time out." The National Association of Realtors does not allow, and we'll talk about this later, but just to jump in here, you cannot publish the name of someone who you feel is targeting real estate agents because of liability reasons. There are certain procedures that have to happen, and they have to happen on the association and board level. For example, if that agent would have published a picture of the guy and said, this guy is harassing me and he won't stop, everybody beware, be careful, here's his name, here's his picture. Think about how litigious our society is. He would have sued not only that real estate agent, he more than likely would have sued her company as well. So here's what you need to do. Advise your agents if they're on the receiving end of any harassment, they need to report it to you. And you in turn will reach out to whoever the contact is at the association, and you need to say, this is what's going on. That agent also needs to report it to the police. The association has to follow the NAR standard. The NAR standard starts with a police report. If the police come and they take a report, then they give you a report number. That information is public information. And then, and only then, can the information in that report be shared. So at that point, you can say, according to police report number 123, you know, this person is a person of interest or someone to be aware of or beware of. So in that situation, they're not going to sue the police because the police officer took a report and you're simply referring to a report and the information contained in the report. If you go off on your own, again, that person could sue not only that person, the agent, but they can sue you as a company. So your association knows how to follow NAR's reporting procedures so that there are no liability issues. Another thing you can advise your agents is to get an anonymous cloud-based phone number. That means that it could be a Google number, but that means if you search for the owner of that phone number, if they Google it, it's not directly tied to the agent whatsoever. The phone numbers that you have right now, that we have right now, you can plug that into Google or one of the search engines, and then that information, the agent information, the owner information is going to show up somewhere online. So if they're concerned about stalking, an anonymous phone number is the answer, and those calls still come directly to the agent's phone. I had an agent say, I want to be found, I want to make sure my clients can call me. They call you on that cloud number and it still comes to your phone. And then before I forget, another benefit of reporting those anonymous or those harassing phone calls to the police is they can determine whether or not there is a trend and if there is an issue. If you don't report it, then someone could be targeting real estate agents all over and no one's talking about it, so no one knows there's an issue. Report it to law enforcement officials, and then they will make a record and they can see if there's a trend and they can issue the proper warning. So these calls should not be blown off. I talk to agents about virtually showing and virtually working. Agents need to be extremely careful when they are showing properties on a virtual basis. If they are showing a property that has anything of value, like the media room with all the expensive media equipment, they're putting it out there online somewhere. And they all had to do this when everyone started working from home. But what I'm saying is be careful what you show in the background. In the media room, you're showing all that expensive electronic equipment. I had an agent who showed pictures of a gun collection when he was advertising an open house. Everybody showed up to see the gun collection. If there's expensive artwork, if there is a closet that has, I guess, those athletic shoe collection or designer handbag collection, if you can see jewelry in the picture, agents are setting the homeowner or the seller up for a burglary. You don't want that to turn into a lawsuit against you because of your agent's negligence. You need to advise your agents that they need to only focus on the room, focus on the home, the features of the home, but not the possessions inside, because just like we all went home to work virtually, criminals went home to work virtually. They can sit in the comfort of their house and case a property. And if agents are sharing pictures to show valuables, they are part of the problem. So that's a conversation you need to have. And again, this is where it could show up in, and I talk about it in one of those articles. So those articles are resources for you to share and for you to use, to tell them to be careful what's being shown in the pictures and in the videos as they work from home, in order to reduce the liability for everyone involved. When your agents decided, well, they didn't have a decision. When your agents had to start working virtually, some of them realized they got really up on social media, and they realized that when you go live, there's more value there. When you go live for a showing or even open houses, there's value. Even before the pandemic, and this was something that was an eye opener for me, even before the pandemic, my sister talked about using FaceTime to be able to sell $1 million property to one of the university leaders here in Kansas City. She was able to do so virtually. This is before the pandemic. So during the pandemic, you all know that every agent, probably most of your agents, have been able to continue working virtually and selling properties. So what you need to tell them is that it's okay to work in a virtual manner, to have a virtual open house. As a matter of fact, one of the articles I'm saying is all open houses should be virtual nowadays. I know that's not realistic, but some of them can. But let me tell you why I'm telling agents that's a good idea, not only for safety reasons, but also for business development reasons. When they're hosting a virtual open house, you know, and post it on media, on social media, you know that videos get a lot of views. I've heard so many success stories. So sellers want views. Sellers want people to see their house. You can get more views posting on social media than you can get walking through the door. So then the second part of the question becomes a safety issue. If real estate agents are posting, hey, I'm here, I'm live right here at this address, they're doing two things. One is they're telling people where they are. Stalking is a big deal in the real estate world. Number two, they're telling people where they aren't. People can figure out where they are, and then they know where they live. They can victimize them. So here's what an agent said that she does when she's working virtually with a virtual open house. She will go live, but she will not tell the address. If someone wants the address, she says, messenger me, text me, email me, and then I will provide the address. She's accomplishing a couple of things. First, she's vetting them. She can authenticate this is a real person. I can look them up. I can contact them. Secondly, lead gen. She has a way now to follow up with them. And she can assure the seller that I'm not just letting anyone in your house. I know who's coming in your house. And so there's a safety aspect there. If a property gets burglarized or broken into while the agent is showing all of the valuables, again, another liability issue. So they need to be careful and cautious who they're actually inviting into a home. And this is a way for them to show the owners that they are watching out for them, who they invite into their home. So let us talk about social media. Do you all know that the National Association of Realtors updated their social media policy? Was it this summer or last summer? The years blend together. Who's familiar with that? The updating of the social media policy. Anyone? It was a really big deal for a while. And I'm trying to think of the instructor I sat in on the training. But the bottom line is, after last year, there was a lot of social unrest in our country. A lot of people were on social media saying a lot of inflammatory things. So the National Association of Realtors said that if a real estate agent engaged in any kind of discriminatory behavior, that they would take action. And the action could be as far as suspending their membership in NAR. And I think it could even go up as far as their licenses being revoked, depending on the nature of what they did. So that is something, and I do believe I have it here. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but you need to have a social media policy for the agents in your office, because if they're posting their listings, those listings belong to your brokerage, and that's a reflection on you. One thing I teach agents is that social engineering is alive and well on social media. When NAR surveyed real estate agents about the social media platform they use the most, Facebook was the platform. What agents didn't know, what they needed to know, is that social engineers are at work to get information from them that they can use to victimize them and to steal their information. Do you all remember last year when the pandemic first hit and the students couldn't graduate from high school? Social engineers were on Facebook and they said, how can we use this to get information from people who normally wouldn't share it? We've got it. Post your high school graduation pictures. So how many of us were digging through our pictures and posting those graduation pictures so that we could show solidarity to the students who didn't get to graduate? What about the post that said, show us your first car? That was fun. You shouldn't be mad because you were participating in a social media event. Everybody was doing it. And so many of us were locked down at home. We were looking for any kind of social interaction. What about the post that said, take the name of the street you grew up on and your pet, your first pet, and then that's your nickname? How many of us posted those funny names? Here's the question. Whenever you get locked out of your online accounts, it could be a bank account, it could be a social media account, what happens? You get a question, a security question. What are some of the questions that those platforms ask you to make sure it's really you? Where did you graduate from high school? When did you graduate? What was your first car? What street did you grow up on? What was your pet's name? You see what's happening? Social engineering found a way, or social engineers found a way to get information from people on social media to tell them information that will help them steal their identities. And we don't think like criminals, so we weren't thinking about it. So it's imperative that your agents have social media training so that they know what to look out for. When we talk about cybercrime, and keep in mind that October is National Cyber Security Awareness Month. So many people said, Tracy, I would have loved to have you for September Safety Month. And I said, I want to work more than 1 month a year. October is National Cyber Security Awareness Month. I had to move some of those people over to October because we talk about cybersecurity, we talk about cyber safety, and it's a whole different program. Can anyone tell me the difference between cyber safety and cybersecurity, or take a stab at guessing? What's the difference? Cyber safety involves your personal safety online. Cybersecurity involves information online. The one you're most concerned about as a broker, manager, and owner would be cybersecurity, the protection of information online. When we look at cybercrimes all have one element, and without that element, cybercrimes cannot occur. Human behavior. You have to take a step, you have to take an action in order to be victimized. For example, if you get a text message, you have to click on a link, or an email, you have to click on a link, you have to respond to the email. You have to do something in order to be victimized. The most important thing is recognizing what those, I call them traps, are, so that you're not victimized. It used to be that cyber criminals would only email you and you would know to watch out for emails. I got a text message, I want to say at the beginning of this whole pandemic thing. And by the way, cybercrime skyrocketed during the pandemic. And it says, your PayPal password has been jeopardized. Click here to reset it. I almost clicked the button. But what I've learned is when it comes to any kind of cybercrime, you need to pause before you take action. Come to a full and complete stop and then think about it. So when I got that text message that my PayPal password had been compromised, I just paused for a moment, because I'm telling you, my first reaction was to click that button and reset it, but I paused, I stopped, and it's like, wait a minute, let me go to my PayPal account and see what's going on. So I went directly to the PayPal account, nothing was happening. How many of you all have gotten the text messages that your Walmart delivery is coming, or your Amazon delivery, or your password? Criminals are working around what we normally expect. We normally expect to see them in email. We expected the phone calls. Remember the phone calls to our house, and then the national whatever to stop the calls came. That law was passed, but then we start getting the calls on our phones. I don't even like answering my cell phone anymore because it could be one of these calls, which is a shame. So the question is, how do we prevent cyber crimes from occurring? I am looking at the clock. We're going to, in about 5 minutes, we're going to take our last 10-minute break. But let us talk a little bit about those cyber crimes that occur. And keep in mind, this is a whole class. It's a whole separate standalone class that I get an opportunity to talk to real estate agents about how to identify these. When the FBI looks at the type of cyber crimes that are occurring, only 5% involve emails, but the volume is 1.7 billion, and that's directly tied to the real estate industry. If you think about the dollar amount of transactions, that helps explain why the number is so large. Now, here's something that you directly impact. When your real estate agents are out there and they're using email addresses like Gmail, I don't know if there's still a Hotmail, Yahoo, they use those because those are easier to use. They get them on their phone. It's easier to manage. Criminals like them because they're easier too. The rule should be, if it's not already, that if real estate agents are talking real estate business, they need to be using your domain provided email. So for example, if you are Century 21, the real estate agent should be using Susie Smith at century21.com. If you're Keller Williams, it should be Tom Jones at kellerwilliams.com. It should never be Iowa Real Estate at gmail.com or at yahoo.com, because those are the ones that are easiest to hack. That's why criminals like them. If they see a business domain email address, they know immediately that a business has IT protocols in place, or you better have them in place. So the likelihood of them hacking into a Gmail account compared to a Iowa real estate account or Iowa Realty account, I'm making this up, that might really be real. Which one do you think they're going to pick? Susie Smith Real Estate at gmail.com or Susie Smith at iowarealty.com. They're going to pick the free Gmail, the free email account, because those are easier to hack. There are no security protocols whatsoever in place. And they know that Iowa Realty or Keller Williams, Century 21 or ERA, they know those companies have security protocols in place. So if you don't require your real estate agents right now to use your domain provided email account, that's an area that you probably should do. And if you don't believe what I am saying, then if you have a cyber insurance agent, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. As a matter of fact, that's probably going to be question number one. And we're going to talk about cyber insurance and why it's important and why you better have it these days. But they talk about prevention. So having your agents use the company domain email, especially when it involves real estate business, your business is crucial. It is critical. Okay, the number one, why can't I see my screen? The number one real estate fraud, as you can imagine, was a compromised email account. And that's where most of the wire fraud occurs, as a matter of fact, as well. So email training is crucial, should be high on the list. Your agents need to learn how to recognize fraudulent emails. They need to know about links as well as attachments, which ones to watch out for and which ones could get them in trouble. If they get an email, again, pause, stop, and think before they respond. If you look at this email, this is a fraudulent email from Amazon. Hold on. Fraudulent email from Amazon. Look how well the email is written. If you got this email and you had an Amazon account, you would believe this. You will probably click on that link so that you can verify your email address. If you got this email from Bank of America, it's relatively well written. Do you all remember in the olden days when you got an email and the English was horrible? That was your clue that this is fake, this is a crime, this is a fraudulent. Criminals have Grammarly and they use spell check now. These emails are well written. So you can't just trust because they're well written that they're going to be legitimate. What we're going to do now is we're going to take our last 10-minute break. If you have any questions, put them in the chat or get ready to answer them when we come back up at the top of the hour, because we're going to go all the way through the end and we may not have time to get them at the end. So let us take our 10-minute break and I will see you all back at the top of the hour. Okay, let's get ready to get started. We have about a minute. Let's get ready to get back and get this last hour done. So everyone needs to make sure they're back on camera. Huh. Aha, okay. Oops, oops, oops. Okay, I'm just making a technological adjustment here. Okay. Just a second. Huh. Oh, here we go. There we go. Technology, you gotta love it. Okay, so we are back. Okay. So I'm trying to see where we left off. Talking about cyber fraud. So let us continue. Oops, darn it. Here we are. Okay, so scammers and buyers. And another thing that I stress, especially with real estate agents, is leading with safety. Every conversation that you have with the consumer, you should talk about safety, whether it's your safety process, your safety procedure, or protecting the consumer. And then this is another topic. And then also, as far as you're concerned as leadership, it should be the same thing. We talked about having a safety tip of the week posted on the walls of your break room, having the conversation during your sales meeting, and in your employee or your agent communication, always talk about safety. So then when it comes to scammers and buyers, and this is content that real estate agents can talk to their clients about, and they need to have a conversation. I know there's a disclosure that talks about wire fraud, but they need to actually sit down and have a full-fledged conversation with the buyers about some of the scams and the way scammers work. And that, again, is going to help them rise to the top of the stack, because I guarantee you, most agents aren't taking the time to do that. So this is something that they are trained to do, and it's something that you can remind them that they should be doing. I don't know if you all heard a story. We're speaking of emails. In California, this happened, I want to say this summer. A real estate agent said that she got a call from her office manager or fellow agent saying, you better check social media. You are blowing up there. And she's like, what did I do? Someone impersonated her. They took her email, and I can guarantee you that it wasn't a business domain email, because they were able to duplicate an email. Think about it. If it's like a Yahoo or a Gmail account, what they did is they added a couple of numbers. So let's say her name was, I don't know if it says her name there. Let's say her name is Susie Smith. So they said Susie Smith, oops, and they added 4 numbers to Susie Smith's email, or a couple of numbers to the end of it. And they sent out a horrible racist email. And some local organization got a hold of it. They posted it, and she and her husband were getting threats. They were getting were they getting death threats? They were getting a lot of threats, and they were told to get out of town. And she said, this is designed to run my business. And she said, I have a really good idea of who did it, but they're trying to hurt my business. And she said, it was not me. So that means someone was able to go to a computer and make up her name and a number, and maybe make it a Gmail or a Yahoo email, and make it look like it came from her. If she was using her company domain, could someone go in and assign an email address to an @Keller Williams or @Remax domain? Can't be done. So that tells me that she had her own private or free email account, which made her more vulnerable. So she had to try to prove that it wasn't her. So that was an uphill battle. And who knows how many clients that she lost as a result. And she's saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. And they said, prove it. Who knows who this is? Someone out there knows who it is. Who is this person?
I can't think of her
Barbara
name, but
Corcoran.
she's from Shark Tank.
Barbara Corcoran.
Exactly. Shark Tank, Barbara Corcoran. How would you describe Barbara?
A shark in a good way.
Exactly. Exactly. So when you're talking about Barbara Corcoran's personality, and you all probably know her story, how she's a tough lady. She is tough. She's a smart businesswoman, right? She's sharp. So if we're talking about cybersecurity, would you be surprised to know that one of the smartest real estate agents, one of the toughest real estate agents out there, was scammed? So let's talk about the scam. She has her own company, and she has someone working for her who got an invoice and said, oh, okay, I need to pay this, because the email address at first glance looked like it came from the proper person. So she paid the $380,000. And when she sent receipt that she had done it, she went ahead and copied, Barbara's administrative assistant. And when the administrative assistant got the email, she said, wait a minute, this wasn't me. Why are you sending this to me? This is not me. And if they looked at the address, the email address closely, it was a letter or a number off. Same thing. Now, Barbara was sharp enough, or she had people sharp enough, she was able to get her money back. During my cybersecurity training, we talk about the processes that you can follow by contacting the FBI. There's a certain window that you have to contact them where they can stop the money before it's completely out of their hands. So if you know the processes, you can be a hero to your consumer by getting them their money back. But the better thing is to prevent it right up front. So if that person working in that office would have followed proper procedure, she would have looked at the email address and realized, something's wrong with it. It's off. That is not the right email address. That person in the office could have stopped the whole thing, stopped the whole process. You all remember this past summer when there was the oil, the pipeline ransom issue. Again, it was, well, we'll cover it later. But again, one person can stop this, and it involves training and it involves knowledge. So that's why cybersecurity training is crucial. Who here has cyber insurance? Who here had no idea there was such a thing as cyber insurance? So that means you know about it, but you don't have it. Let's talk about why cyber insurance is important. Okay, when NAR surveyed real estate agents, one of the things that they talked about was that brokers typically don't provide any cyber security protection or even training. There are cyber crimes that occur that can impact your business, that could technically put you out of business. If there are computer network breaches, and the situation with wire fraud, there was a story, and I don't know, I may or may not have it here, where a consumer lost $150,000 in a wire fraud scheme. And instead of saying, I should have known better, he sued the title company, the agent, and the real estate company. If they couldn't write a $150,000 check, they would have been out of business. If they didn't have a cyber insurance policy, they would have been out of business. So I had an opportunity to meet a cyber security expert who also happened to be a cyber insurance agent. He said, we'd rather prevent cyber crimes than to have to pay cyber claims. So a big part of his still is making sure that agents understand where you can get in trouble, and that also extends to you as the leaders. We talked about social engineering and how social engineering allows criminals to get password information to hack your accounts, to hack our accounts. So you need to educate your agents about what to look for. False invoice or instructions That's exactly what happened to Barbara Corcoran's company. Manipulation of wiring instructions for real estate closings. I don't need to tell you all this. I don't need to talk to you about wire fraud because you live and breathe it every day. How many of you all, I know there is a wire fraud disclosure, and I'm assuming that there's one there in Iowa, that when you work with a client, you have them sign a disclosure form that says that they will not wire any money to anyone unless you specifically tell them and that they follow your instructions. Does such a disclosure exist? So that disclosure exists. What about taking it another step further? I've received emails from real estate agents that have verbiage on the signature of their email. Every single email has verbiage about wire fraud. Never wire money to someone who solicits money from you. Do you all have that in your email signatures and your brokers, your agents and their signatures? I am betting that you can go to the National Association of Realtors. You could probably even go to your title company or even mortgage company and ask them for that specific verbiage. And that goes on your email signatures and all of your agents' email signatures. So all outgoing email, no matter who it's to, everybody gets the same warning. So imagine what happens when one of your clients say that we were victimized, we lost money. If you have followed those protocols, can they ever say you didn't tell them? If they had to sign a form and talk to your agents first, they will never wire money without talking to them first. If it's on your outgoing email signatures, that offers some coverage as well because you have told them not to ever do it. So that helps cover you. The problem with cyber insurance is that it's going to be, you have to file a claim. If one of your agents does something careless, if they, for example, get hacked and your client information is stolen, or your clients have, they accidentally wire money to someone and they sue you, a cyber insurance policy will cover any bad cyber insurance habits. The goal is to avoid those. So that's why cyber security training is so important, from clicking links in emails and text messages nowadays to responding to emails. So if you don't think cyber insurance or cyber safety is important, you need to know that it is. This happened back in 2017. Jessica Edgerton, she was the associate counsel for NAR. This is the story I was telling you about. That consumer sued the title agency, the real estate agent, and mortgage lender because of home purchasers, because they neglected them. They did not warn them about the possibility or the potential for wire fraud. So the real estate agent was careless, and it could very well have cost the broker their business. So the whole goal is that you educate your agents right up front. And cybercrime is going to occur, wire fraud is going to occur, but if they do that, what is it called, the kill chain, you can get the money back, but that involves training. Somebody needs to know that. Let us talk for a bit about Zoom data breaches. We're not talking about Zoom bombing because that was an issue last year in the beginning of the pandemic. Zoom immediately stepped in and they put procedures in place where Zoom bombing could not occur. But what's important now is Zoom data breaches. That involves anyone who has a Zoom account. So that means all of us today could very well be a victim of this. There is what really exists at dark web. There is such a thing, and that's where criminals are looking for information. They're looking for our personal information. And in the situation of a Zoom account, they're looking for our email addresses. They're looking for our PIN numbers. They're looking for your personal meeting ID so that they can steal your identity. There are over 500,000 accounts on the dark web, Zoom accounts that they've reached. So here is an opportunity for you to educate your agents. This is an email this afternoon. This is a social media post today. And what I tell agents is this is an excuse, a reason for you to reach out to the consumer, whether it's your sellers or buyers, and say, hey, I just wanted to stay top of mind. And I found out about this website, haveibeenpwned.com, and there is no vowel between that P and W. It looks odd, but that is spelled properly. I wanted to share this resource with you that I learned about, haveibeenpwned.com. What that does is it allows you to plug in your email address. If any of the websites that you've ever visited have had any security violations and any breaches, it's going to pop up on the list. The first time I did it, there were 13 companies, and it includes companies like Canva, Poshmark. So of all the companies that I visited, the first time there were 13 of them that had security breaches, and it said, you better change your password on these websites. I went back again, I want to say a couple months later, there were 23 other companies that had security breaches. So what you all need to do today is to tell your agents, here is a website, haveibeenpwned.com. I need you to check your email addresses and change your passwords if you need to. I'm telling agents, share that with your consumers and just say, here's some information that I learned. Please make sure you're safe. One thing that I talk about is leading with safety. Every conversation should be somehow connected to either the agent safety or the consumer safety. When the National Association of Realtors surveyed agents or buyers, 91% of the time, agents never contacted their buyers again. So they sold them a house and they never followed up with them again, either the buyers or the sellers. And then 18% of the, and all these numbers are in my head, I'm just trying to make sure I don't get them jumbled. 18% of the buyers said they wouldn't call that real estate agent again. It's not that they were bad agents, it's just that over the years, they did not remain top of mind. So that's why I always tell agents to lead with safety. If you see a safety or security article, or something like this, information that you can share, just pop in and say, hey, I thought about you. I want you to be careful, be safe. Don't talk about selling properties. Don't talk about listing properties. Just say, I'm looking out for you. I saw this resource. So definitely keep that in mind. That is something that you can do. There are a lot of real estate related crimes out there. I had, what am I doing? I was interviewed by the Boston, there it is, by Boston Globe, and they wanted to talk about all the different real estate crimes and frauds out there. You can Google, I think I put the address here. No, that's not it. Google Boston Globe and my name. Don't forget to put the E in there. Find the article. That is a great article that you can share with your agents again. And that is another way to lead with safety, another contact, another conversation about safety that they need to know about. One of the things that I encourage agents to do is to Google themselves. And I'm telling you all that you should be doing the exact same thing. You need to Google your name, comma, your real estate company name. Google your name, comma, real estate agents. You need to Google yourself in quotes, out of quotes. And that way, if ever anything is published online about you, you will get an email. If you set up what's called, oh, well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I advise people to Google themselves at least every month, once a month, every other month or so. Some of us are too busy or some of us are lazy and we're just not going to do it. I advise you to set up what's called a Google alert. Now, a Google alert means, and you'll Google it and you can figure it out. A Google alert means these are topics that I am interested in. So this is where you're going to set up a Google alert around your name. It could be around the topics that you're interested in. Again, with your real estate company behind it, your name, in quotes, out of quotes. If anything is ever published online about you, about your company, then you're going to get an email that will have a link to the resource, whether it's an article online, it could be a video clip, a TV clip, whatever it is, you're going to get that information. So that's how you stay on top of things. And this may be cumbersome, especially for larger companies, but it would be nice if you were able to establish this for your agents. So that way, you know, if there's ever anything online about your agents, if they are representing your company, that you will be the first to know. So since you may have like bigger companies, that might not be practical, but if there are agents who are maybe more active or agents who, how do I say this nicely, who may be a concern for you that you need to keep an eye on, set up a Google alert. So that way, if they're out there and they're posting something that you need to be aware of, this is how you will find out immediately, right up front, what's going on, since they are representing your business and everybody doesn't need to know that you're doing it. So let's talk about ways that you can utilize technology to help you screen your clients and to help your agents screen clients. And keep in mind, I don't know what your procedures or your criteria are when you decide to hire real estate agents, but the same tools that you use, that your real estate agents use in order to determine who you work with, your buyers, and whether or not they are criminals or someone to be trusted when you work with them, will be the same tools that you can use to check out your agents to make sure that if they don't, they may or may not pass a background check, but there may be information out there that you need to know about if they're going to be working for you. One thing I talk to real estate agents about is everyone knows that if you're going to meet a new client, you need to Google them, you need to do their research, you can get information on them. But one area that agents fail to do is to check the sellers out. Agents will show up to a seller's property without vetting them at all. So they're walking into a complete stranger's property just because they call themselves a seller, and they're more likely to trust them as opposed to meeting a buyer who they've ran through every security system or every website in town. So that's another conversation to have, is to make sure your agents know that they need to verify and confirm and vet sellers as well. So the tools here that we're going to talk about allow them to do that. And again, that's another post. Hey, agents, here's an idea. Make sure you check sellers out before meeting with them. I talked to an agent in, I want to say, North Dakota. She went to a house to list the property. And she said when she got to the front door, she felt a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't overwhelming enough for her to turn around and leave. She walked through the house, and before she left, the seller invited her to have a seat and let's talk about it. And then he offered her a drink. She said when she put the glass close to her face, she could smell something in the glass. Her alarms, red flags went off, and she wouldn't drink it. She knew at that point that she was in danger. So one thing that real estate agents fail to do is to vet the sellers to make sure they're legitimate. There are crimes, and every time I turn around, I'm hearing about more of them, crimes that sellers or people pretending to be sellers are perpetrating against either real estate agents or consumers. We know about Craigslist crimes, but there are people who are pretending to be sellers. And I just had one wherever I was, maybe Montana, where she said they pretended to be the seller. She went to the house and that she was going to take a listing, but eventually he said, I don't really own the house. And so she was able to get out of the situation, but your agents need to know who they're dealing with. And there are resources we're going to talk about to determine which resources the agents can use. We talk about whether or not social media followers are real, and I would be the one who said, what difference does it make? So many agents are stuck in this game of having as many followers as possible because they feel the more people who follow them, the more important they are, or the more their voices are out there. I had an agent who said that she got a message from someone on a social media account who wanted to see a property. And she said, it was a direct message. So she said, sure, she set up a showing. And then she said, let me just click around and take a look at his profile before I go. And she found out it was a fake profile. She saw stock images there. It wasn't a real person. She was about to go meet a complete stranger or someone who's made up without checking them out. Again, that's another benefit of social media safety training. Agents need to not, I keep hearing the term about a Pop-Tart agent, but I don't necessarily use it, but agents shouldn't just jump up and show property to just anybody. They need to do their homework, and you need to give them the tools. So everyone here is familiar with Craigslist frauds, right? So when your sellers are victimized by Craigslist fraud, that impacts you. What is something that we've talked about today that will help your company get out in front of those listings that may be victims of Craigslist frauds? Who can tell me a tool that we've talked about today that can help you lead with safety with your sellers when it comes to, you can't stop a Craigslist fraud. I can create a fraudulent listing in 2 minutes right here, right now. But who can tell me a step that you can take to add value to the relationship with the seller to help slow down those frauds? A technique that we talked about today that you can do today. What about setting up a Google alert with all of your company's listings, or each agent setting up a Google alert with all of their listings? So let's say one of their listings, they have a Google alert set up, and then a criminal decides to hijack that listing, and then they publish it on Craigslist or on Facebook or wherever else they can publish it. Either you or your agent, whoever sets up the Google alert, is going to get an email and say, hey, this address has been published or posted online. And then you get the email, you click on the link, and then you get the Craigslist listing or wherever it's posted. You get an opportunity to get out ahead of it, to contact the seller and say, we have a problem. here's what you need to do. And this is where you add value to the relationship. You need to contact Craigslist and report this as a fraudulent listing. You need to get signage in the window saying, do not wire money to anyone. Do not talk to anyone other than my broker. So you can get out in front of it. So use a Google alert as a safety tool to help you lead with safety with your sellers. Okay, let us talk about ransomware. Have any of you all ever had to deal with ransomware regarding your business, or are any of you all concerned about ransomware? Anyone? So those of you who are concerned, what are you doing to make sure you're not a victim of ransomware? Or who, first of all, can someone define ransomware and tell us what it means?
Isn't it virtually someone taking hostage all of the data that you have and basically either changing passwords or locking all necessary users out of it so that you have no access to it, and then holding it for ransom, literally?
Exactly. And a lot of people think, oh, it can't happen to me, or they're not looking for me. I mentioned earlier that oil pipeline story that was in the news earlier this year, when we were all scrambling to fill up our tanks because we thought that we were going to be out of gas. We may run out of gas, or gas prices were going to be too high. It was reported that an employee at that company clicked on a link in an email to start off the whole process, to start that whole ball, to start the whole issue. They clicked on a link in an email, which gave the bad guys an opportunity to get into the system of this big multi-million-dollar oil company. And then you all hear about it in hospitals, and you hear about it in companies of all sizes. So once the criminal has access, and all it takes, again, is one person clicking a link, they have access to all of your data and information. Think about your situation in the real estate world. Someone has access to all of your company files, all of your data. And let's say that's where all of your information is stored. So if you can't access it when they have access to it, you're out of business. What's the one thing that you can do to make sure that the carelessness of an employee or even a real estate agent does not jeopardize your business? There's one thing that you can do as a broker, manager, or owner to make sure you are never in a situation where you have to pay a ransom for your data.
Is it, I was just going to say network backup.
Back it up. Exactly. So many of us save information to the cloud. We save it to OneDrive if you have Microsoft. We save it to Google Drive if you are a Chrome user, and we think we're covered. Let's think about that. Imagine one of your agents, or even you, they have a laptop, they're at a coffee shop somewhere, they're working on their laptop, they're conducting business, they have emailed clients back and forth, they have data from your clients and financial data, whatever personal data on their laptop, okay? And then they get up to go get a cup of water, someone steals their laptop. Does the person who steals their laptop have access to their Google Drive? Do they have access to their OneDrive? Do they have access to their emails if they steal a laptop or someone was working on it? So therefore, when you're working on it, you don't have your password encrypted, right? You don't have that screen up, you're working on it. So if someone steals a laptop, do they have access to your files and your client information? Yes or no? They do, right? So even though you have it on OneDrive, OneDrive is on my computer. Anyone can walk up to my computer if they get past the password. And if I'm on my computer and I step away, they are right there in my computer. I don't require a password for me to access OneDrive. I don't require one for Google Drive. I don't require one for email because it's my computer when I'm in here. So one of your agents or you get up. Now someone has access to your OneDrive, all of your information. They can lock it up. And guess what? You're out of business. That's why something like a Carbonite is important. A Carbonite is not tied to your system at all. It's in the cloud, a whole totally separate server with all of your information. So your laptop gets stolen. They change your OneDrive and your Google Drive password. You can't get the information. but it doesn't matter because your client information is right here on Carbonite and another backup system. You're still in business. So everyone who doesn't have some kind of a backup system, you need to get one to protect your information. Let us talk a little bit. We're almost, time is flying. Let's talk a little bit about NAR's harassment, sexual harassment policy. And this is something important. And I don't know if you all remember reading a story within the last year or two about a member of a real estate company who was harassing the agents and the employees left and right, and it went unchecked for a long time. He eventually ended up getting in a lot of trouble, but the company more than likely can't retain agents or employees after that. So the goal is to make sure you have a harassment policy in place, but you don't even have to do it. This is the NAR updated harassment policy. This is something that I would suggest that you go directly to the NAR website, print it, put it on the wall, in your office, in more than one place, in the break room, near the desk, put it in more than one place. I was talking to a broker in Oklahoma. She said there was an agent in the office. He was an older guy, and she said he always made like off-color jokes, sexual jokes, and he thought it was funny, and everybody just kind of left him alone. You know, he's an older guy, you know, just it's okay, until it wasn't okay. And then someone complained, and at that point, she had to fire him. At first, she looked the other way because she thought it was harmless. When one of the agents said, "This is not funny, it's not harmless, and you better take action." So at that point, she got serious about it. So make a copy of the policy. And then this is something I say that needs to be said out loud to your agents during sales meeting, or it needs to be included in an email directly somewhere, at least a couple times a year, maybe once a quarter, because sometimes people get a little too comfortable and a little too casual, and it could again cost you your business. So make sure they understand what constitutes sexual harassment according to the National Association of Realtors. Okay, and then we were talking earlier about the new social media practice this new social media rule that the association implemented. I want to say it was earlier this year or last year. The time runs together when they talked about the agents not being able to say certain things that could be derogatory or could be offensive, and that meant that was all activities of oops. Oh, I'm trying to find it here. Here we are. That was oh, why could I see my screen? Okay, all activities of a real estate agent, and not just those related to social or to real estate. So in their own private time, if they were on their own social media, personal social media accounts, and they were saying things that were inflammatory or saying things that were prejudice or they could get them in trouble, the National Association of Realtors said that's a no-go. It could cost you membership in NAR. So it was a big deal. And they also said it could be referred to the Ethics Violations Committee. It could also be referred to governmental agencies. There were a lot of real estate agents who were upset. They said, this is stopping our free speech. The National Association of Realtors said if it's a social media posting and you are a member of the National Association of Realtors, that impacts us. So that's something that as a broker, manager, or owner that you need to be aware of. If your people are out there posting things that could be inflammatory or libelous, it could get you in trouble, they could get you sued. You need to be aware of it, and you need to make sure that you're following the rules. And again, it was a big deal. People thought it was overreach, but it was adopted by the National Association of Realtors. So it is a thing, and it deserves you to do some research on and make sure that your company is never in violation. We talk about there being no such thing as privacy. If in your offices you use any of these devices, a Google Nest or an Alexa, if you use it in your office, if your agents are using it in their office, it could be an issue for you. So all of us, and even people with a smartphone, I have programmed my phone where I can give it voice commands. I can, and I don't want to say it out loud because my phone will come on and it will do it. So I can say, okay, Google, call someone. And my phone will do that. You can say the same thing for Alexa. You can say a name and then it will call that person. So what happens if your agents or you have this in your office and you're talking about a client and you don't realize that your device, whether it's your phone or your smart device, calls a client. And then they're overhearing a conversation that you're having that you thought was private? What if you're talking about a competitor? What if you're talking about someone that you work with? What if it was negative? What if it was even gossip? And then you accidentally say their name and then it costs them? That could be a privacy issue. I talked to an IT guy who said just to avoid any kind of conflict, unplug your smart device before you have a conversation within your office. The odds of it happening are probably slim to none, but in a voice activated world, it could happen and you'd rather just avoid it. Let us talk quickly about hack proofing your smartphone. Every single real estate agent I talk to, I would say 98% of them use their phone for business. That means they're emailing, they're corresponding with clients for business. What happens to the real estate agent who goes to, let's say, a coffee shop and they leave their phone behind? And then all of a sudden, someone has access to not only their phone, but the client information, your client information on the phone. What is one thing that every single smartphone owner needs to do to hack proof their phone to make sure that they never have to call a buyer or a seller and say, look, I'm sorry, my phone got stolen. All of your information is there. I don't know who has it. I am sorry. What's the one thing that you need to tell your agents to do that you need to do?
Password protected.
Thank you. Just a simple, whether it's a thumbprint, a pin, a security code, every single device needs to have a password protection in place. I was a latecomer to this. I would think I don't have time to go through all of that. I want my information in a hurry. I can put my thumbprint on and in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds, I have access to the information on my phone, or I can enter my PIN less than 5 seconds. So there are no excuses. If one of your agents is doing business on their smartphone, they have your clients' files on their smartphone, you need to suggest that they have a PIN or some kind of password protection to protect your client information on their phone. There are a lot of safety apps on the market. I've been doing this for 26 years. I've seen safety apps come and go, and I don't think agents truly value safety apps. I've partnered with a few safety apps and agents just truly don't value them. But there is one that everywhere I go, just talking about safety apps before I talk about this, who can tell me if your association or you all have a safety app plan that is recommended or that's available to your members or that you actually use? Does anyone here use a safety app at all? Does your
I do.
association? Oh, tell me which one you use, Tony.
I think it's called 1Password. I think it's the number 1 with password. I have to go into it and double check it. Let me look here.
What kind of safety app is that? What does it do for you?
It has a master password that holds all of my other passwords into it. So I put, if I know what that password is for that, then I put it in, and then it has all of my other passwords encrypted in there. So I only have to remember 1Password for all of my other, but it's the safeguard for it all.
And that's an actual app?
It can be used on all of my devices. I pay for the family one so that even my grown children can access it as well. But it's for my laptop and all of my devices.
Oh, okay, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to take a peek at that because I haven't heard. LastPass, L-A.
I'm guessing, Tony, is that?
No, it's a different one. This is one that yeah.
So LastPass and 1Password, correct?
Yes, and it's the number 1.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to look those up. Thank you for sharing those. Whenever I ask real estate agents about safety apps, I hear people mention Life 360. I hear people mention Forewarn. Are you all familiar with either of those? Okay. Does your association or your company have Forewarn?
Forewarn, yes, our company does. And another association that I'm a member of has Forewarn.
Okay, let's do this. Let's talk quickly about that. And I'm looking at the clock and I know we're almost out of time, and I know I'm not going to get to all of my slides, but let me try to get to as much as possible. And keep in mind that you all are getting that ebook, the handbook, so that you can implement those policies in your office. And it's a reminder, a guideline that you've earned the certification today. So I had an opportunity on more than one occasion to interview forewarn representatives for articles for Realtor magazine, as well as for the close. And what forewarn is, it's basically a background check. You enter a phone number and you're going to get a report, and you can do this, my understanding is in less than 2 minutes. Enter a phone number, you're going to get a criminal background report as well as a financial background report. So you can know whether or not the person that you're about to meet has a criminal history, and also if they have any financial issues like bankruptcy or something that may impact your working with them. I talked to the actual one of the representatives, and we were talking the first time I met him. He said, give me a story about an agent who was assaulted when there was an arrest made. So I pulled it up, and we're here on the phone together, on the computer together, and then I give him the name of the perpetrator who was arrested. He entered that information in forewarn, and he said, here is their criminal history. The list was long. He said if the real estate agent would have known about this background, they never would have met him. So here is, and that's ideal. That is one layer in the safety plan. That's one way you can determine whether or not you or your agents are meeting with someone who has criminal convictions. More recently, I had an opportunity to interview another agent who created an app. And then I'm going to remind you all, when you go to the close and you look at the safety articles, I wrote about 9 safety apps for real estate. And then this guy said that forewarn only records convictions. He said, what about the criminals who got away with the crime? He said some criminals get away with the crime 12 times before they actually get caught. So you can have an agent who thinks, I've got forewarn, I checked them out, they're clean, everything is good. And then they show up and meet a criminal who hasn't yet been convicted. So that was a red flag for me, but it does not diminish the value that forewarn offers. Forewarn is a layer of safety. So that does tell you whether or not you're working with someone with a criminal conviction, but you still need to continue doing your homework. That means social media research. That means you need to check criminal records, court records, county records to see whether or not that person has been in trouble and just simply not convicted. So that's definitely something to think about. Another one is Life 360. Everywhere I go, agents are talking about Life 360. Life 360 is a location app. It's an app that says, here is, I'm going to share my contact information with someone. They can see where I am at all times. Some real estate companies may think about setting this up for the agents in their office, or if you have Google Calendar, then you're able to see where all of your agents are supposed to be. What Google has done, Google Maps has done, is they've taken it a step further, and it's free. If you use Google Maps, you already have this on your phone. So what happens with Google Maps is it allows you to find the location of your phone. So it could be your phone or the person. So I lost my phone for the very first time in life. So I got home to my laptop, or I guess you could do it from your phone, and it's like, where? Find my phone. I got what popped up on the screen was everywhere. Of course I am here. Was everywhere that I had been. So every place that I had been, there is a timeline that talked about where I was, and then also shows a map where I was. So that way I could have retraced my steps. What I've learned is that Google Maps allows that as a personal safety feature. So you can actually share your location with someone. All of a sudden, my phone never ever rings in life. I promise you, it never rings. And all of a sudden today. So you can share your location with your contact list. So someone needs to know where you are at all times. They can go to their phone and they can see your location in real time on a Google map. One thing you can do is, you guys remember when Google would go around and they had the camera on top of their cars and they were taking pictures of our houses, and we were all feeling like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? If I'm a real estate agent and I'm showing properties, let's say from a certain time, I can give whoever my contact is. It could be someone in the office. It could be a friend, another agent. It could be a spouse, my access to my location for a certain amount of time. It could be for 1 hour, 3 hours, or it can be 24/7. Someone has access to where I am. They can look at that and they can see where I am. And if let's say I'm not answering, they can pull up a street view of wherever I am, a building or a house, and they can see exactly where I am. This is a feature of Google. And if you all use Google Maps or Google Calendar in your office, this is something that you already have. So I strongly advise that that's something that you implement. And I am amazed every time I take a look at what they offer. There are other safety apps that are on the market. What I don't like about them is that I think a safety app should have two features. One, it should have is GPS feature. And number two, it should have a live feature. If you have a safety app, when you're in trouble and you push a button and it sends a message to your contact list and it says, hey, I'm in trouble, it's too late. The crime is already in progress and you're basically sending a message to your contact list that here's the scene of the crime. So those kind of apps I do not recommend at all. If you have an app, it needs to have a real live component where someone can pop on and say, are you okay? And the person you're with can actually see and hear you talking to someone else, a live person. So that's what you need to look for on an app. Let us talk quickly about what's on the market to keep you safe. And this is something when NAR did the member safety report and they surveyed real estate agents and said, what weapons do you use? Number one weapon is pepper spray. Number two weapons are firearms. 19% said pepper spray, 14% said firearms. Let's talk about firearms first. If your office has a policy that real estate agents can carry a weapon, then it needs to be publicized and they need to know that it's okay to carry. Real estate agents should also check on the local level, make sure the association or board allows weapons to be carried. What the National Association of Realtors has said, we're not in this. You know, we have no stance on whether or not you can carry firearms or your agents can carry them. You deal with it on a local level. So that is a choice that you get to make. If your agents choose to carry a pepper spray, they need to be educated. And again, there could be a whole training explaining to them what to look for, but you need to make sure that they know the right formula. Keep in mind, mace is a brand name. Tear gas says CN or CS on the actual label. That's not recommended at all because it's a pain inducer. If they spray someone, it could cause them to get angrier and even escalate the attack. So what they need to have is OC, which is what law enforcement officials, as well as postal carriers use. So make sure if your agents are carrying a weapon, that they are carrying the proper weapon. So they need to know their options. Okay, so we talked and I'm looking at the clock and we're almost at the end here. And I'm just trying to make sure, and this is for the association and leadership on when it's time to create a warning. We talked about that. Let's touch up on office safety. I get an opportunity to go into offices, or I used to get an opportunity to go into offices and talk to agents about safety. One thing that I noticed at the front desk, there would be a receptionist. And I remember the last time I did this, I talked to the receptionist. I was looking for an agent. She said, just a minute, let me go get the agent. That receptionist got up and walked around the desk and went back to get the agent. And I'm standing in front of the front desk and I'm looking at that receptionist's purse, her handbag. I'm looking at her cell phone just right there. I'm looking at her keys, which would be the office keys as well as her car and her house keys right there. Those items need to be put away. They need to be out of sight. When I walk through an office, I see real estate agents doing the exact same thing. They will have their valuables right on top of their desk. And they say, I trust my fellow agents. I am saying more than their fellow agents are in the office. It could be a client, it could be a contractor, it could be a service provider, someone else, a seller, buyer. We don't know who they are. So agents should be advised to get valuables out of sight. Just they can put them in their chair, scoot the chair under the desk. They can put it in a drawer. It doesn't have to be locked down, but it does need to be out of sight. One thing you need to keep in mind is that whoever is at your front desk is probably the most important person in your office when it comes to safety. They are the ones who are technically the gatekeeper. If you have a policy in your office that people who come in must display ID, then the person at the front desk is the enforcer of that rule. So they must be willing to say that you can't come in without an ID. Not only that, but they must do it consistently and across the board to keep you from getting in trouble. So if it's going to be for one, it's going to be for all. And that's a whole level of training. So they must be consistent, apply it consistently so that you're never, ever accused of discrimination. You need to establish secure lock. Tell me if you all have keyless locks for your door, your office door. Okay, so for those who don't have keyless locks, if you have a regular keyed lock, and if your real estate agent is jeopardized, if their keys are stolen and the office keys are there, then you have to rekey the entire office. So that is definitely something to think about, having keyless locks. And what about office equipment? Do you all have operation identification there? Anyone know what that is? What happens if a piece of your office equipment is stolen and the police say, we've recovered this $1,000 printer, and you say it's mine and they say, prove it? Do you have a process in place to prove that that is yours, or any items of value in your office is yours? What operation identification is, and even if your police department doesn't have it, it is a step that you need to take. All items of value within your office needs to be either engraved or they need to be marked with invisible ink, and it needs to have identifying information. So if your item is ever recovered by law enforcement and they say, prove that it's yours, what you've done is you've inventoried everything in your office, and you can do this with just your cell phone camera, walk through and videotape everything of value within your office. That way, first and foremost, if you ever have a break-in and anything is ever stolen, you don't have to rely on your memory and say, what did I have and where is it? You have a videotape inventory, and then you need to take it a step further. You need to engrave it with identifying information. And then that way, if it's ever recovered, you can prove to law enforcement officials that it is yours. You also, within that inventory, you need to have serial numbers or registration numbers as well. So that way you can always get your equipment back. And that's something people don't think about until there's a disaster, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, and then you're trying to recover items. So make sure that you keep your items safe. We talked about purses and laptops, parking lot safety. What people know is that real estate agents love technology. Real estate agents can't always carry their technology with them, so they may be prone to leave it in the car. If I am a criminal and I'm looking to break into cars, I'm going to a real estate company, because I guarantee you that's where I'm going to find the electronic and the good stuff. So it would behoove you as a broker, a manager, is to remind your agents to keep valuables out of sight in the car, in the parking lot. Hide it under the seat, put it in the trunk, but items need to be out of sight. The National Association of Realtors has forms that you need. Forms like a client itinerary form. It has what is called the client information form and the itinerary form. Probably one of the most important forms that you need to know about is the agent information form. What happens if you're in your office and this afternoon an agent passes out on the floor? Do you know whether or not that agent has any health issues? I had a broker owner in Oklahoma City. She said that she had an agent who had diabetes, diabetes complications, and she knew that. When that agent had an incident in her office, they passed out, she knew exactly what to do, and time wasn't wasted trying to figure out what might be wrong. So she knew that. You need to go to the NAR website and you need to get the agent information form, and you need to have your agents complete it. That's where they're going to talk about whether or not they have any health issues, whether it's allergies, diabetes, or any other issues that may be your business. If while they're in your office, they have an issue, it needs to have an up-to-date emergency contact. You need to know who to call if something is wrong. Now, when they first signed up with their company, that person may not even still be their emergency contact, and maybe the phone number has changed. So this is something you need to do every 6 months or so. You need to know the vehicle that they drive, the make, model, and the license plate number. What happens if your agent doesn't show up and then law enforcement official says, what do they drive? If you can't answer it, time is delayed. And if you can't contact their emergency contact, time is delayed. So you need to make sure that information is up to date. If you go to the Realtor website, I wrote an article, yes, I did, back in 2013, and it has a link to all of the forms that I talked about. So you can find it there. And again, that form should be top of mind, the agent information form. We're not going to have time to talk a lot about workplace violence, but there is, again, a whole separate training for what you need to watch out for in your office, starting with the front desk person, who I say is the most important person. One of the stories that we talked about, the real estate office shootings, involved a disgruntled client in one situation, and another situation, a disgruntled agent. So there needs to be an actual plan in place, and the handbook does touch upon that, but there needs to be an actual plan in place on what to do if someone approaches your business, what steps to take. And then there are just, and I got this from the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department training that I attended. And everyone in your office needs to be on board. They need to know the proper steps to take. And that could include, we have 5 minutes. This is in the handbook. So you can review this in the handbook, the first step, and you need to talk to this again. This could be a topic for your sales meetings. This week, we're going to talk about what to do if someone comes in our office with a gun or a weapon. And then you cover this, or your committee can cover this, and you can pull it again right directly from the handbook. You can talk about one tip each meeting, or you can talk about all of the tips. Pick a topic and talk about it during the meeting. But to not share it, not to say it out loud, is going to cost an issue, because people don't think it's ever going to happen. So if you say it out loud, that they will know what to do. So you can actually have one of these topics per sales meeting, or it can go out in a reminder email or a text message to your agents, another way for you to show them that you're concerned about their safety and security. And I know retention is a big deal, and recruitment is a big deal in the real estate world. And the more of these crimes are out there, and if they see that their broker and their manager truly cares about their safety, and that you're sharing this kind of information on a regular basis, then it's going to help you. Harassment, we talked about that. SEPTED, we're not going to have time to talk about that today, but it is in the handbook. If you have your own office, your freestanding office, or even an office in a building, it's going to tell you how to secure your office and make it safe, just implementing using the environment, crime prevention through environmental designs. So that information is in the handbook, and I'm just winding down here to, we talked about keyless locks. This is part of that. So here is where we are going to wrap up, and we're going to wrap up on this. How many of you all are familiar with psychological safety in the workplace? Who's heard of that before? Okay, a couple of you all have. This summer, I got the opportunity to speak to the DC Department of Transportation and conduct psychological safety for their team of managers. They have like 132 managers, and they have about 1,100 field workers. They said, we want to provide a psychologically safe environment for our work staff. So that meant that everyone within that company, within that organization, felt comfortable going to leadership. And in your situation, it would be coming to you saying there is a problem. So psychological safety, and again, that's a whole nother training that I offer, but it's important. If you, I know, I'm very pleased that most of you all know what it is, but psychological safety in a workplace can be a game changer. It basically empowers your people to know that if there is an issue or a problem, no matter what it is, that they can come to you, they can feel comfortable coming to you, and that you will not shun them, you will not shame them, you will not embarrass them, but that you will actually hear them. And psychological safety is something that I'm super excited about. And that's something I'm going to be offering more of in the future to real estate companies and associations. So that's going to be my new topic that people really, truly need to hear. We are at the end of our time today. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we've covered today? Anything to share, any information? Questions? Did anyone learn anything new today, or anything that you might implement that you had not thought about or had not done in the past? Please say yes, so I will know that I wasn't here talking for 3 hours for nothing. Can anyone share with me? Make me feel good, guys. Anyone share with me anything new or different that you learned today, or that you will start implementing going forward?
Cyber insurance.
Excellent. Cyber insurance. Okay. Anyone else? Give me one more person, make me feel good today. Come on, one more person. Tell me something new or different that you learned or that you will implement going forward to keep your office and your business safer, your agents.
I think just speaking about it more, instead of when something comes up, just speaking about it as it comes up.
Okay, being more proactive about it. Okay, wonderful. So here's what I'm going to do. That handbook that I have is an ebook. What I am going to do and what I typically do is I get the contact information of everyone, and I've had almost 200 brokers, managers, and owners complete that certification. And I email it to you as well as your certificate with your name on it. I say, display it in your office, be proud of it, and show your agents that you took the time to learn how to make the brokerage safe, not only for your business, but for them. And then going forward, as I publish new articles that would be of interest to you, content and information that you can share with your broker, I will share it with you. If you do not want to hear from me, I will not be offended. Please just just say to Megan, don't include my information. But if you don't say anything, you will get the handbook and everything emailed to me, or you can even have her email it if you don't want to hear from me. But if you want to hear from me, then know that going forward, I'm going to share articles and information content that you can share with your brokers. I mean, your agents. And if there are no other questions, I want to thank you all so much for your time and your attention and spending the afternoon with me. And I want to tell you all to be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Like she said, I hope you learned a lot. I know I was sitting here quietly, but I was taking a ton in. So thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody. I'll go ahead and close out the room and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, guys. And if anyone needs
Thank
any of
you.
those, if anyone needs any of those products, the pepper sprays or anything, you can reach me afterwards. Thanks, guys.